welcome to the Apex Legends Global Series. Today is match day 5 in EMEA, which means after today, we will be at the halfway point of the season. It's the second time that these two groups will face off against each other, and with the action we saw the first time around, I can't wait to get into it today. I'm your host, Glitter Explosion, and I, of course, cannot do this alone. I am joined by two of the best in the biz, starting with Spider Tiff. Are you excited to see what these groups bring to the table?
I am so excited, Glitter, but something you mentioned right there in your opening kind of caught me off guard. How are we halfway through Split 1 already? I know we got Season 20 on the horizon, and I threw half of my sleep schedule out the window last night to watch some Fnatic domination, but it paid off, of course, and now we're here, locked and loaded, ready to see what EMEA brings to the table, like you said.
I mean, I cannot wait to see. And also, you are looking fabulous, Tiff, today. But we have the other half of our dynamic duo as well, the man himself, Zephyr. Are you even remotely prepared for all of the action that is about to go down today?
When it comes to EMEA, I am always prepared. And I'll tell you what, the action smells absolutely divine, almost as good as a full English breakfast. So, hey, thankfully they're here as well.
And hopefully you've had your full English breakfast as well, Zephyr, in preparation for today. Now, we have a lot to talk about here before we get into all of the action, though. We do have a little bit of a team update announcement, if you will, that we want to point out. And that is about Phoenix Legacy, or the team that was formerly known as Phoenix Legacy, as they are now known as TSM Phoenix. And you know they have to be excited about that. I mean, Tiff, we have 2 TSMs now.
We do, and I couldn't be more excited that for every time I see where TSM in an EMEA broadcast chat, we can say they are right here, TSM Phoenix. So I guess they're not technically wrong. We're like, is TSM playing today? Of course they are. Of course they are.
I mean, Zephyr, give me your thoughts on this one.
I'll tell you what, when it comes down to it for TSM Phoenix, not only are they officially here, but also they've got a killer logo. So I know it's not up yet, but you guys will get to check it out either. It's not quite TSM-y.
You are not wrong, Zephyr. Now, of course, with an announcement like this, you know that we also had to take the time to go talk to the team because this is pretty epic. So we had an opportunity to catch up with Sabs and Kyrie to get their thoughts on what it's like to make ALGS history and what it's like to be on this newly named squad.
Hi everyone, I'm Sabs.
And I'm Kyrie.
And Alpha Draft is our third teammate and we're at TSM Phoenix. It's so great. It's such an amazing feeling to inspire so many women and inspire them to even compete in the bigger tournaments than just the women's scene. I would love to see a lot of them in Pro League and CC, and I think that's going to be a great start.
It's definitely a new experience for me, but I mean, I've been competing in comp for up to 2 years now. I've been in CCs, multiple tourneys here and there. I've sipped in for a lot of people, and I've been playing women's comp for a very long time, but just officially being on TSM Phoenix has actually been a great feeling, and I'm really happy with the role that I've been given. I feel comfortable as a fragger, so I'm happy to be here.
TSM is like a family to me. They're helping me out with the hard stuff, with even when the time that I'm feeling great, you know, they're still next to me. I can always ask our coach Raven for the help, and the boys if we need something. And of course our community is great, and we love them all. It's helping us a lot that we're playing with Kai as a duo in the women's scene. Because of that, we're just getting a lot of more practice that we can just use in ALGS.
So we're not changing much. We're still sticking to playing zone because we know we're comfortable with that. We're good at it. I think the only thing was that we're more comfortable playing from Jurassic as it's more mid-zone. So we are going to be moving there. Sticking to the same comp, and as for myself, I'm just gonna try and get more comfortable within my role as a fragger, but it'll get easier with the more experience I get.
Okay. That is impressive. I loved it. I loved it, Glitter. When I sit there and I watch it, not only does Kyrie have all of the Nessies and the Apex decorations, even the Wraith plushie in the back, but a lot of things that she mentioned, and Sabs including, they get access to all of TSM's resources, including Coach Raven, and even the move from Checkpoint to Jurassic really leans into their playstyle of that zone heavy comp. And honestly, I'm excited to see what Zyrie brings to the table. Or Kyrie, my apologies. Where did Z come from? I don't know. Maybe I was thinking
it's Sabs. Sabs, or maybe you're gonna ask Zephyr his thoughts too. One or the other.
Yeah.
Personally,
Yeah, what's up, Zephyr?
I'll tell you what, when it comes down to it, the only thing I'm waiting for is for them to finally settle on a third. It has been a recipe of disaster for Phoenix Legacy, and now, of course, TSM Phoenix for what feels like over 2 splits. So the minute they finally lock that one in, I know this roster will succeed.
Yeah, I'm glad that we were able to chat with them a little bit. It was nice to hear from them, and congratulations on the name team. But it's time for us to start setting the stage a little bit. We're going to take a look at our overall standings, see where our teams are. And now I know it's a little bit early here, Tiff, but some of these teams really need to start thinking about what they're going to do with their position on the leaderboard.
The position on the leaderboard is everything. I'm already looking down the line for season 20, of course, but split 1 playoffs. And with 8 teams advancing from the EMEA region, you immediately have to jump down to that 8th place, which is kind of held in a tie between Alliance and UAIM. Now Passion UA, we'll get to that later. But Passion UA only has 2 days of play on the board, so they'll of course move up. But for teams like Element 6, Orglis and Hungry, 07, Aurora, they are on par to meet that points cutoff for the playoffs threshold. Back in split 1 of last year, that 8th place threshold was 83 points, and it was 84 in split 2. So barring any major issues here throughout the rest of the regular season, I immediately think that we will see these teams qualify for playoffs, especially down to Aurora.
All right, and then as we take a look at the second page here, Zephyr, these are the teams that are just right outside that bubble that Tiff was just mentioning. You know they're going to be doing everything they can to push up inside of it.
And especially coming out of things like our EMEA roster mania, squads like Vamoquiere or Passion or even LCDF, who have previous major playoffs or LAN experience, seeing them down here in the bottom 11th through 20th is definitely not something that I expect to carry on, especially given that for some of these rosters, they are still sitting at just 2 series played. It's not quite do or die yet, but we are getting towards that cutoff.
And then finally, we have our last page here, a couple teams that we want to be keeping our eyes on. But obviously, a lot of the teams on this page also, like Zephyr was just mentioning, have only played 2 series, specifically the likes of TSM Phoenix. Obviously, there is that new name change down here on this 3rd page. But they are a team that have looked really, really strong. So after this 3rd series, I'm going to be very interested to see where that puts them on this overall leaderboard, especially heading into that little bit of a break we'll get after our match day here today. But now that you know where everyone is standing in this region, let's take a look at the groups that we have playing here today, because it is groups A and group C going up against each other here. Tiff, who jumps out at you on this list?
Can we just go ahead and say Aurora? I have to, right there. They performed so well on the last match day too. The org themselves on the timeline saying they want to jump to the top of the community-driven Apex power rankings, so you know they're going to bring a lot to the table. Thinking back to their performance on the prior A and C match day 2, they were so strong on Stormpoint, incredibly consistent. Yeah, it started to drop off once they made that switch to World's Edge, but if they bolstered their scoring on World's Edge and have been able to find a more cohesive series, I'm really excited to see what they do today.
And then Zephyr, of course, give me your thoughts on which teams you are keeping your eyes on.
I love to go for underdog picks, but I feel like it would almost be offensive not to bring up E6 here, especially after today's performance being the proving point for this roster. Obviously, when they go up into their matchups of A versus B, they come out on top, first place across the board, and it's the reason why they sit the top of these regions. But it is the A versus C that has been proved to be a difficulty, and hopefully now, after a little bit of a soft reset before our halfway point, they'll finally get the return they so don't deserve.
All right. Obviously, lots of teams here for us to be talking about, but every single show, there's always a couple that we kind of really want to focus and dial in on. It's time for us to take a look at our teams to watch here. Zephyr, I want to start with you. You chose cybercats. Tell me about them.
Like I said, underdog stories are something that I tend to love, and with cybercats for this roster coming together at the start of our split here, a major toss between ranches from previous iterations of things like major pushers to Danya on 789 for multiple years. They had their obstacles, they faced their difficulties, starting off in 19th overall, jumping to 6th, and then of course last week finally finishing in 2nd. If this is the trajectory this team is on, especially after seeing what you see there on their World's Edge, they're definitely a reason why I'm watching them today.
Yeah, they're definitely a fantastic team to call out, as they have steadily improved on their performance day over day. And we actually did have an opportunity to catch up with Sanya and see how he was feeling about playing with cybercats and how their season has gone so far.
Hey everybody, my name is Xania, and my teammates is Ranches and Londi. Our coach is Mr. Romoka, and we're playing for cybercats. The first day we were playing as duo. Our teammate Londi got a big storm outside and his electricity went off. So yeah, that's it. And the second day we were playing already as trio, and we were not doing so well at Storm Point. I think it's the weak point from day one, Storms. But yeah, we did good at World's Edge, and yeah, we got the second. We were doing tryouts with Ranches. He asked me if I want to join the tryouts and play like with him. We played for like 1 month together with different squads, tried different people, and ended up with this roster with Alonde and Ranches and me.
Well, I really love seeing cybercats throughout their journey, and they brought up a very good point there. They had to play that first day as a duo due to the storms, but immediately bounce back on their next match day, and I hope they can keep the consistency here, because they're not going to be contested on Storm Point, but they do have that contest over onto World's Edge at Harvester. But one of the teams that I've been keeping my eyes on is going to be UAIM, aka Passion UA. You have to start thinking about this roster. Max, Strafe, Sonya, and Artico, they have been so impressive, especially bouncing off the last match day win. So I'd love to bring up some highlights from that journey and kind of talk a little bit more about them, because you start to think about it. I reached out to Max right after their match day and I was like, hey, you know, I understand you're the IGL, kind of give me some information about why you've been so successful on certain days versus others, and even more particular, going straight towards the map. So Max is like, you know, I had a lot of time honing in my IGL skills from the days on Navi, and more in particularly playing alongside Nasky and Dell on GMT and KCP. But going through, Sonya is even better at making those micro calls during the fights. And that is something to keep an eye on, especially their positionings. But they're approaching this split one here with a nothing to lose mentality. And I think you can really start to see that in their aggressive nature towards these end games, and specifically here, coming over to this Echo HQ ending. RD, Sonya, and Max Strife, the way they approach this, they throw the Radiant transfer down, start immediately destroying the enemy's conduit ult, and then just full send into Storm to take out the last team. RD, though, looks a little like, oh, are we really gonna go? We're gonna make this call, we're sending it. They are, and they completely annihilate, with Max being able to clutch up there towards the end. And then I even kind of asked Max a little bit more questions like, hey, what's it look like on World's Edge? What's the difference makers there? And he's like, yo, we've been rotating out of staging when we flexed between that and landslide with no beacon information. So let's look to see what their rotations look like, more importantly, and then also the signing for Passion UA. Big deal here. Congratulations. We just saw this drop within the last 24 hours, and it's so good to see them find a home.
Another fantastic choice, Tiff. Definitely want to be keeping our eyes on UAIM. For me, to close out these teams to watch, I want to be keeping my eyes on LCDF, Le Cité de France, okay? Now, this is a team that you might be like, why? Currently, they're kind of in the middle of the pack, right? Well, let's take a look at their stats here so far, because there's a couple important things that I want to point out. Obviously, their placements, not terrible, but not anything super stellar, somewhere in the middle, just like their placements right now. But it is their kills that really catch my eye right now. They are on par to be inside the top 5 with their number of eliminations. They just really need to be finding their footing with their placement points, and that should be what is able to then break them into those top positions. I mean, Psycop even tweeted that they were looking for a coach to help them make those improvements, since their macro and their pure fighting power is already there. But if we're talking about fighting power, okay, it is the Zidane that we need to talk about him, okay, because he alone is essentially that fighting power. I mean, look at these kills, look at the damage. He is averaging the most kills per series in EMEA right now for a team that's currently in 16th on the leaderboard. If that's not speaking to their slaying ability, then I don't know what is. So as long as they figure out those small tweaks, their ability to then push themselves up into that top 8 bubble like Tiff was talking about when it comes to those leaderboards is right within grasp. But now that you guys know all of our thoughts on all of our teams, it's time to start talking about our matches. Match number 1 is almost ready to go, so it's time for you to send it on over to Tiff and Zephyr to kick today off.
Hey, thank you so much, Glitter. Hopefully LCDF just absolutely fries out today. I think they were all really solid ones to watch, but we've got a couple more things to talk about here. Let's go ahead and look at that map schedule and which one we will be starting on today. Zephyr, a lot of questions there, but we are going back to the tried and true, keeping it consistent on the Storm Point map for starts.
And with the storms will come your forecast. We talk about the early contest here. Of course, Mate in Heaven and Redragon once again. The full English in Electrifying Steel and Zeus. And of course, Passion v Forge in Cascade. And for all of these teams, this is something that they have to be careful, especially a squad like Made in Heaven, who is right on the cusp of making those playoffs. But thankfully on World's Edge, the remnants of these rosters do get a little bit of a respite as we move over to World's Edge.
Well, yeah, let's go ahead and look, because you kind of alluded to some contests that are in the potential. Let's look at where our teams will be dropping for Storm Point and kind of chat it up, because we do have a few things to talk about. More in particular, you got Zeus Station, Full English, and ESG, The Wall, Made in Heaven and Redragon, and Cascade Falls will be that coveted Passion v Forge contest. Now, I've had a lot of time throughout scrims watching, in particular, the Made in Heaven Redragon contest, and it has definitely skewed towards Made in Heaven, Zephyr. So will Redragon preemptively leave? I do see availability over there towards Millage and /Bean, and you know, we'll see. Even Echo HQ kind of move cybercats over straight to Coastal Camp and let them take that.
Well, when we talk about the previous representation of this group, especially with Full English and ESG, they've got to be a little bit careful for that northern rotation. It's the reason why we tend to see them move as quickly. But you guys can check out what that looked like here during our day 2 and some of those final zones, which brings up some interesting points, especially about UA and AURORA, Tiff.
Yeah, AURORA in particular had 77 points from the prior match day, 57 of them acquired throughout the 3 games on Storm Point. And when you look at this, you would say, oh, immediately, Cedo Station and Barometer, they have priority towards those end games. But their best game of the day was actually the Lightning Rod ending in map number 3. Despite having to hit multiple reses, getting their teammates back to full force, they were able to get to the top of Lightning Rod and completely eviscerate everyone around them. But that's enough for me, because our players, they're getting locked into that dropship, because game number 1 is about to be underway, Zephyr.
As our dropship makes its ways through, we hope our players are locked and loaded, because their fates are potentially decided here. For some of these rosters, this is going into their 3rd, if not 4th, representation of 6 series played. They're actually beyond their halfway point already.
So crazy to think about. I just got a perusing of what that crafter is going to be look like. We're going to have the laser sight, an energy mag, purple helmet, and purple bag in the rotation. So we already know the Volt is the primary SMG of choice now that it's back on the ground, and I'd imagine a lot of people are going to be looking to hit the crafters to get those mags. But for our Legend Select here, I was curious, was Mandy going to lock in the Pathfinder, especially ahead of the Season 20 changes?
I don't know about that, but I'll tell you, for cybercats, Zanya on that fuse pickup, something that we don't typically see on Storm Point due to the lack of proximity, due to zoning and control here. So I'm very curious, especially for this roster who has been on their train of improvement, how that might work out.
Only time will tell to see what happens for them. I mean, we've seen a lot of fuse in the mix for Legend compositions when it comes to contest, World's Edge in particular, but maybe we're just kind of prepping for that. Our plane line, as our players start to hit the jumps, is going to be relatively central, moving from west to east. So a lot of teams like LCDF and Northpad, Down Beast for ANC Outplayed, they're going to get that extra bit of time to hit the ground running and start that loot up.
And I'll tell you what, for those who are a bit later, cybercats, especially in E6, they'll have their delays here when we talk about Launchpad and potentially Echo as well. For Passion, though, this is the start we've been waiting to see. EQ, I love this, already taking off angles, but for now, we'll pop on over the wall. It looks like Made in Heaven making their entry.
I love that they're already making an entry here. This has been a pretty hot contest that goes down within the first like 20 seconds of hitting the ground. Usually they'll vie for the same building, but also Redragon has actually backed off a little bit and will land to try and pick up some loot before directly. But something to note here is that one member of LCDF actually landed up in the wall, grabbed a purple shield, and dropped down. But Redragon starts to get a little anxious. That thermite, though, on Kazakh is going to force them to back off.
I'm loving the pressure that we're seeing here from Maiden, having continually applying off and straight in, but you got to give credit to Jukes where it's due. From that height, able to deliver at least a response in return there, but Kazakh caught out. A great grab lift to pop him back, but unable to find the flatty shots.
Meanwhile, we do see Forge win their contesting Cascades against Passion, the first team eliminated. Now Jukes last standing here for Redragon. We don't want to see this go down as another Maiden Heaven victory. Radiant Transfer coming through to try and fend off this inevitable push. Kazakh, though, unfortunately still down, and Fitu finished, and with the res coming through, it's about to be a 3v1. Let me just tell you, if I'm the last member of Redragon, I am dipping and diving all the way out.
I was surprised to see the delay on that too. You know, coming down to a situation where you already knew you were at, I'd say, the deficit of player numbers. Jukes has already made in that escape. Now, granted, being on that conduit does have the opportunity to look for return. We'll take a look at the map later and see what might be options available for Crafter. But for ESG, this is the success that we have seen from them time in, time out.
It's been pretty back and forth here at Zoo Station between the contest with Full English. And now I know you were hyping up the Full English breakfast, Zephyr, but did you eat the beans, bro? Like, did you eat your beans for breakfast? Because Full English needs YouTube. They need more vibes here.
They need more, potentially, passion, potentially more energy, or as you always like to say, more footwork. But for at least for ESG, they'll have some of the first takes. For TSM Phoenix, just as quickly as the name has come through, it might be on its way out. It's left up to Alpha Draft, current sub on the third, to escape for now.
It's really typical of them to go ahead and get that information of where the zone will be pulling and make that early rotation. But unfortunately, just getting caught out in the choke. And another team hitting the rotation. 07 and 202. Amphi already down. And with Nags and Nasty split, almost sandwiching 202. But the knock comes through, and we just need to find Miscum and Aussie, leaving Nags left standing. A Horizon Q to try and disengage. A lot of really interesting early match fights here, Zephyr.
I'll tell you what, that was excellent from 202. They got a perfect split off of that Dark Veil, isolating Amphi, immediately allowing for basically a three-way beam that gave them that initial fight against 07. I'm surprised to see the return from 07 on their way out here. Now, granted, here's to see if they were the ones that took the early damage against TSM Phoenix, but for both these rosters, we'll be looking for tough returns here, neither really having a great way to get their players back in, especially given the fact that the zone pull is so directly into them.
Zephyr, are we ever going to get to cast over some North Storm Point zones? I just can't tell at this point. We called it out Lightning Rod for the match day number 2, and that was the sole northeastern zone that we've got. But we're going back to the southeast. So teams like Cybercats, who land Coastal Camp and essentially Echo, Element 6 landing in Devastated Coast will have essentially priority to that as well. So you can already see they're setting up for that to happen. But for 202, after that engagement with 07, they've settled here into the compound, and they do have that next ring information, but I think this is a really strong start for them.
They'll be able to play the slow edge rotate and avoid the majority of that launch pad stack. But this is something I want to tune in and check out here. Element 6 brought down in this particular cubby hole, and I call it the cubby of death here. So many teams love to play this space out on the outskirts of Echo, given its presence. But if you're not too careful and you get some of that double pincer tactics like we saw from Cybercats there, you end up finishing in 18th for game 1.
Yeah, but that's some early KP there for Cybercats after hearing that, speaking from Zanya and seeing how Fuse works, especially Fuse Bloodhound Bangalore. This is one of those legend compositions that I really haven't seen too much of, but the majority of teams have been playing that Bangalore. You just saw the pick rates up at the top of your screen. So we'll see how that goes, especially knowing this is the last match day ahead of all those major 20 changes.
Oh, to say I am hyped is an understatement. I know we're going to talk about it a little bit more as we go through, but I mean, I'm just excited to see some reinvigoration, especially to some of those favorite legends out there that people I know love to pick up.
But for Alpha Draft, does not want the team above him to pick up on any of this, any like inkling that they're down here. The lone stander just wanting to go ahead and get that crafting through. The 202 moving in just up top. They have no reason to move just yet because they can get so much information. And as I say that, well, they throw down an evac tower. Looks like their time is now to leave.
Yeah, especially after seeing some of the more catering down towards the Echo devastated coast area. This is no longer as applicable towards Launchpad with some of those extra informations being provided here. So that will allow Alpha Draft to get a bit of a return and potentially some major recovery for TSM Phoenix. Redragon, though, can't say they are as lucky. Some of those later rotations from ESG picking them up from what I can only assume is on the outskirts of zone.
It was the outskirts of zone. They 100% hit the cannon by Stormcatcher, jumped up and landed into ESG's arms at Thunderwatch. So now that 202 has made their move to get a little bit more close, have gone under fire. Radiant transfer coming through, so the shield regen phase is active. A good piercing spike to try to block that doorway, but they don't care. They come jumping in, but still go down as well. 202 is having a very solid showing here today for match day 5.
Rockfaka's got to be careful. Some of those exterior angles from Devastated far too punishing. This is going to allow Dahlgren to get the opportunity to, well, survive for but a moment more. This is worrisome, though. We talk about this bridge being a high pressure of play for so many of these teams coming out from their later northern rotations. Well, Dahlgren got to find some kind of recovery or setup, at least to just maybe rat this one out for game.
But I think that was a very vital spot to take for 202 and win that engagement with where that zone is pulling. But for LCDF, who are trying to figure out their macro strategies to grab as many placement points as they possibly can. We already know they're solid fighters, but now down to a team of 2, losing out on Kiner, Izidon, and Psychop will have to rotate back. They do not have a conduit on their roster, so if they do not recover this banner, all is lost for them. But I love that Xenon has kind of popped up on high ground and will be able to try and get as much damage as possible. But for Made in Heaven, look, this is their prize. They're not going to let this banner go.
For LCDF, they started out with a crafter up there in North Pad. They are like a pinata when it comes to Made in Heaven coming off of their slower rotates outside of the wall here. So the perfect set of loot to get them sustained out here on the edge. And they can finish off the remnants of LCDF from Cinetic. With great angles like this, it's the perfect opportunity to take the lion's share and more.
The Bruiser on the G7 goes hard right now. Let me just tell you. I know a lot of people typically run the 3x or the 2x4, but that Bruiser is one of my favorite scopes. They hit the grab lift, they look to get on the top, and Zedon just has to disengage, has to decompress from that situation. But now the chase is on, and in that solid 3v2 with Made in Heaven having player advantage, it's just going to be tough because it forces LCDF to split up and kind of scurry and be very reactive to this situation, which is not giving them a good fighting chance.
Psychop manages to just barely make it by the hair on his chin into the household here, and Izidon once again trying to posture out for some of those exterior kills, and granted will find major cracks, gets the slide through from behind, finishes off with another knock drop onto Arctic here. Psychop is down though, and with the ticking health of zone, he will die.
But let me just tell you, that was a work of art and shows you why Zedon coming into this match day was in top 6 for the amount of eliminations throughout the EMEA region, just bouncing around on the horizon queue, repositioning, isolating those fights. It's rather tragic they'll go down to zone, but they really fought for it.
Yeah, an incredible performance there, and hopefully something that we'll get to see extend. Granted, the zone truly punishing this roster the complete other side of the map. But I'll tell you what, if AURORA can make Lightning Rod happen, the same can be said. And heck, the same can be said for GoNext, a team that starts out in Mill, who was one of the first squads to get into this position. Holds a lot of inklings of weight when we talk about either a finish out here of the Devastate and you play on the height, or even for those rotations towards the Echo HQ here.
As we look at where our next zone will be pulling, something to note here, TSM Phoenix back up to a full 3 stack. So they'll be kind of focusing on making sure they can get looted back up before heading towards zone. Now, granted, you heard Kyrie talk in that interview. They are a zone team, and this is a little outside where they would like to be playing right now, but that's just granted because they are in that recovery mode. But with the zone pulling straight towards devastated coast, just on the outskirts of this Zephyr, a lot of teams got to move.
The one big cluster is going to be that bridge over there. It is the transition point for so many of our northern teams, like I was discussing earlier. And if you think it's already bad for a team like TSM Phoenix, who are out and far away, I can only imagine what it's like for their They're there. I will tell you, 2 rats, 1. We'll see what they might be getting up to, especially with crypto in the sky. Let's see what the Arca's telling the squad.
They will pick this door for sure.
Go,
You guys ready?
go, MP.
EMPing them, EMPing.
I'm swinging.
Watch out,
No.
I can't.
Gold. Come back, I've gold, come back.
They want gold and everything.
Keep crawling, come back.
Yeah, I'm coming back.
I have gold rest, I need to rest.
Yeah, do. I think you're sick.
Okay.
Stay, I got them all stick.
Yeah. Watch above.
I'm watching. He's gonna drop.
I'm healing.
We fine.
Other team.
Don't have Pollard fighting.
Other team. I have no wall,
We think we
boys.
managed to go right side.
Yeah, I think we should go right. I think we should go right. No,
Yeah, go.
I have no wall. We need to smoke if we need to cross.
Going right side. I'm safe on me.
I don't think so.
We need to watch left.
Yeah.
Are we safe forward somewhere?
Watch for
We are safe here. Like forward. But we need to kill them on the left.
We need to
have
kill
no other
them, bro.
option. Yeah, we wipe them, bro.
I'm healing.
Let them drop and we wipe. Just let them drop and we wipe.
They drop already, they drop.
Where's the other one?
I'm walking forward.
50, I'm walking forward as well.
I scannated.
Heal up.
Got side.
Nice Kennedy in front of Sako.
No hit.
I'm batting.
They have DG. I'm healing.
On the left. I'm swinging.
In the left horizon.
Come left.
100.
Nearly crack on the... Contact one.
You win
That
that.
guy.
Nice.
Nice, I give you no...
Still alive, Nick. We win this. Still alive, baby.
Another team.
Nice.
Nice try. Nice try.
Fuck.
Nice try.
I did not think this game, my bad.
Nice.
2R1C down and out. Forge and Phoenix. Well, I almost called him Phoenix Legacy, but TSM Phoenix. My bad, TSM fans out there. But with the zone kind of closing now and a minute 20 to go, Zephyr, we knew a lot of teams were about to fall on this rotation. It was going to be a tough one.
Had it gone just a little bit more clean for 2R1C, they're not having to posture out of the damage of that zone could have been big for them, especially with where this zone is pulling. Still though, for Made in Heaven, Aurora, and many more, there is no answer to the rotation ahead. And something more notable about this, as we talk about that bridge, it's actually not even going to be in. So not only do they have to make their way forward to the south, they have to eclipse the teams on height and then drop down in front of them.
It's going to be really interesting to see, but for Aurora, playing underneath 202, have set their sights on this building in front of them, a preemptive smoke to make sure they can take this. Now, granted, there's no roof on this building, Zephyr, so they have to watch their heads. When a Kraber's in play and in the hands of Impulse, it could be exactly what they want.
See what they can do here. Like you said, incredibly punishing, but notice it is only Impulse taking that off angle to try and posture and sustain a future position here. Taking these early angles to be that kind of warning sign is a big indicator, and while shots are already had, here's see what Hardeki and Oirain are going to get up to, especially with some of these teams now looking to push through same chokes.
Oh, this is so tough. You can just really see the lay of the land. ESG dropping down and almost pushing towards where Aurora has positioned themselves. But for 40% worse, they're kind of scattered across Zeri on top of the bridge, pushing straight into 202. Mandy electing to play that Pathfinder. And I can't help but to think of the perk systems for Path coming in season 20. You get a knock, your regen on your grapple occurs, but for Passion UA, they have fallen. We're into the top 9, and they fell to the hands of ANC Outplayed.
For Aurora here, they actually are able to make full rotation after taking some of that height damage, and they'll dip, dive, and weave back on over for Made in Heaven. We saw Arctic up moments ago before this initial knock. We'll push through similar chokes here. Digi in hand. Gonna have to waste a clip on the black hole. Unable to get the effective rotation. Heck, not even able to find the damage.
That was a tough push, Zephyr. All I know is Aurora making that move towards the building saved them.
Good.
It allowed them to double back and essentially shoot right back into Made in Heaven and ESG. Now to the final 7. Shiv going rogue with a longbow elsewhere, but anytime we get a Kraber in the hands, you know we got to see some crazy shots. So I'm looking towards the Aurora boys here to make some plays because they still have a bit to go and a lot of teams surrounding them. You got Raka Faka there on the left-hand side. Kind of once that wall goes down, it will open them up to the hands of 40% worse. The full comes through on Miscom. Now 202 is not really going to have a chance to regain here.
Such a good position from 40% worse, and we talk about the next rotation ahead. Thankfully for them, I mean, they do lose out on the current low ground space here on this side of the island, and making that cross will land them right in front of ANC Outplayed. So, have to look for some kind of access or maybe even potentially contest for the height here.
Really tough. You see the shield crack come through on a fuse, which means you know AURORA was able to get some angles onto cybercats, but it looks like their biggest threat for this next rotation will be on their left. So immediately taking up, trying to play underneath 40% worse. Scans coming through though. AURORA is going to have one heck of a journey to go forward. For ANC Outplayed, already poised in a building in that next zone, and 202 going down here. Let's see what AURORA can do here to 40% worse, because Mandy over there looking like Obi-Wan.
Ooh, that could be none other than cybercats on the other side, laying in with the fuse ultimate, and that's going to stunt AURORA in their tracks. Down goes Impulse. Oirin now shot out from above. They'll send the full roster home here. For 40% worse, they've got no cover, and cybercats, well, they're going to take full advantage.
This is going to be such a massive starting point here for them, and they just keep dumping all the ammo into the teams looking to rotate. The lone member of Mind will fall, and that team will go out. But for 40% worse in cybercats, we also have ANC Outplayed and GoNext duking it out towards that right-hand side of our building. But 40% worse, I can only imagine they're going to fall here to cybercats.
Yeah, a really tough angle. Ranches has to be exceptionally careful. I know playing through the smokes will find a bit of safety, but one bad peek could potentially spell a recipe for cybercats, maybe as a duo. Even still, a couple nades, another smoke down. Will continue to find the damage that counts. There goes Zerafer. Mandy on the other side, picked up from GoNext to take us to our top three.
Our top three, and now cybercats holding essentially a lot of space on this zone, getting some well-needed loot before Ranches kind of meets back up with Alonzi and Zanya. But being able to consistently put pressure onto Outplayed.
Wow.
The issue, though, with Outplayed is they play Watson, and they're probably going to have that pylon up alongside the fences to really just outline that building and make it tough for them to push. GoNext playing the rooftop, trying to find any angle they can to eliminate that team inside their building.
I mean, this is a recipe for disaster for these two squads. Outplayed and GoNext sharing the same space. And while, yes, it's a knock here onto Maxi, I can't imagine being next to each other is going to elicit great safety. You can already see some of the shots ringing in from the opposite side. It's none other than cybercats starting to take those aggressive angles. Ranches, once again, that posture in Alonzi from above.
You know, they had to throw out the Dark Veil early to try and hit the res, but as Outplayed moves in, cybercats, they just full send, and Alonzi grabs as many eliminations as possible, and cybercats bounce back from yet another consistent day to get a map 1 win here in Stormpoint.
There's a reason I picked him up at the start of today. What might be an underdog story is starting to look like a Lions legend here for the cybercats. A win on this one, especially with Fuse on Stormpoint, is a lesson to be taught. And it started with an elimination against none other than E6.
That's pretty crazy, right? You think about that. They do land over in Coastal. The zone kind of favors them as well for that end game. But where they took their mid-game status and just been able to whittle down at the majority of our rosters making their rotation, I can only imagine how many eliminations they were able to gather as a squad throughout map 1.
I've always said, Tiff, when a team gets the zone that plays to their position, that is truly the testing point for the quality of that roster. Because if any zone is to play into your POI, that should be the game that you deliver within. And for cybercats, it was nothing short of success.
Yeah, it's very akin to the last zones that we witnessed from the prior match day number 2 against groups A and C. We did get that kind of southeastern zone. So of course we're going to get another one. My question is, will we get a more central one next time and then maybe a north one? Look, we'll start manifesting, but I'd love to go ahead and get a look at those match 1 results. Zephyr, don't even. You know I'm going to manifest some zone endings. It's happening here. I'm going to light my candles and be like, oh my gosh, I would love to see a north pad ending.
That's what I want. I wish to conjure up something for LCDF at this point here, because having to make a move like that, you got to see the kind of extensions that they were making, especially into the face of a team like Made in Heaven off of that game, came to truly bite them back.
And here they are, 12 eliminations coupled with that 12 placement points. A 24-point game there for cybercats, a massive showing in game number 1. And ANC Outplayed, able to grab 4 eliminations throughout their journey down there in Devastated Coast. And honestly, a really strong start for 40% worse when you think back to Group A and C. They were in 20th place on the day.
Yeah, and it's an incredible exchange, but one that comes with their position in mind. But I'm looking at Made in Heaven. I know I just made the claim that they had their struggles, but they actually finish out in 4th overall after that game. So a respectable start, even if it's without their placement, coming from the KP alone.
And as we jump over to page 2, it's the page of the contests and the teams that fell early. Redragon over at Wall, Full English at Zeus Station, and Passion in Cascades. But we're getting to the point, Zephyr, we talked about this and kind of ahead of the pre-show. This is the time where you really have to start thinking about your playoff chances, and is it worth still going into this for contests? There are just a few places that you could maybe look towards. We talked about Millage being open, and sometimes it's just really tough. TSM Phoenix, they had a heck of a journey there in map number 1, trying to hit the regain, only grabbing 1 point there. But Zephyr, your cybercats, man, it was a good showing for them.
This is one of the first times we've gotten to see them elicit a total of over what looks to be 6k damage from their initial playthrough. And for this team, taking damage in return seems to be their biggest issue. At negative 7,000, they are the 3rd from the bottom when it comes to their response. So giving themselves some happy real estate in that Echo location to just absolutely throttle and punish teams between the Fuse, and some extensions from Ranches have come up big.
Yeah, you have to think about it, right? If they don't win that fight against Element 6 could have been the winner here. But we start to think about it because it was an electric game. And we also alluded to a lot of the changes that you'll be witnessing when it comes to Season 20 during that match, where the games are going to go into overdrive. Legends are upgraded, perk systems to be had. Let's go ahead and look at that Season 20 launch trailer.
I got you, Legend.
Thanks for the save.
Hey, you good? So, Hero, what's the plan?
How about run?
Punching these eggs. I'm with you.
Let's do some shopping.
3 girls. Ah, someone's got sticky fingers.
I think I'm gonna lose me life.
You're good, amigo. Let's freaking go.
Taking damage over here.
You are lucky I am here to save you. Follow me. Now.
Teamwork, Reed? That's not like you.
Wow, that view is a work of art. The view being me, of course.
Both are very arty.
I appreciate it, but listen, whoever cleans this place up after we destroy it are the real legends.
Hey, you ready for another round, shooter?
Start a fight, start a fight.
You promise.
I got caught dancing. I got caught dancing to the music of that gameplay trailer. I mean, for every single time we get to see one of these, it just makes me hope that one day we'll have an animated series.
I'll tell you what, it definitely makes me feel the rush here when it comes to Season 20. It's going to be absolutely explosive and probably, I think, one of the greatest seasons of all time for Apex Legends. But we've got something better than that. We've got Game 2 of our Groups A and C here. We're back at Storm Point again.
I mean, you called it, Zephyr. A phenomenal performance out of cybercats. Obviously, the zone definitely helped when it came to their positioning, but they literally played it perfectly once they found where they wanted to hold, and they started off the day with 12 kills. I mean, come on, they've already set themselves up so well.
Hey, it is an excellent start here, and for cybercats, getting a return like that, finding a win is something that they haven't come through quite often, literally only recently off of our day 4 here. So hopefully it's the start of something consistent for this roster, but the big question is, can they adapt to those shifting rotations?
And you know, we obviously heard you guys talking about it. One, the contests were pretty brutal to kick off that first game, but two, some of those teams that had drops that were a little bit farther away from that zone, I'm talking about the likes of LCDF, struggled a little bit making their way through the map on their rotations and couldn't exactly find the points that they had been looking for, like we talked about at the top of the show for them. So I'll be interested to see what they can manage now here in match number 2. Will we continue to see all these contests, or are people going to start giving up those POIs?
Ooh, I don't think they'll give them up just yet. Redragon already here, and for Made in Heaven, this is a response that someone like LCDF need to see them lose. But for Heaven, they've come through on top this time in, time out. Fit2 already taking full cracks, and doesn't look like they've gotten much pressure in terms of their loot. Choked off to a single building now.
I mean, we saw how this went for Redragon last time. Made in Heaven, also one of those teams that slayed out in the first match of the day. And we could see that both these teams taking a little bit more passive approach this time around after what happened in match number 1. This is boding a little bit better for Redragon, giving themselves a little bit more time to reset and find some loot, hopefully able to do a little bit of poke damage here, but they have definitely made a smarter decision. And as I say that, though, that might caster curse them, Zephyr.
I like the turnaround from Kazik there with the L-Star in hand. This weapon doesn't get enough respect, and I'll tell you what, Redragon don't seem to be getting much either. But the Sky nades, Cinetic with the knock drop in. Apparently, isn't it?
Potential third party coming in here as this fight has gone on for a little bit longer than I think either one of these teams would have liked. Redragon trying to stick that res here, get Kazik back up, see if they're able to kind of get this 3 as the smokes come out. You know they're going to be looking potentially for a disengage here as soon as they see those other shots come through, but they lose another one. At this point, it's going to be LCDF trying to push it and see if they can maybe resurrect themselves after their last match 1 performance.
I love this. I absolutely love this. LCDF know the pressure is on as we're starting to approach that halfway point, and getting contested or pushed back on the edge of zone by squads like Made in Heaven. They've decided to take fate into their hands. That'll be it for Kazik, spotted out like the rat he is from above. One final member for both of these teams now left standing.
Little bit of deja vu there for Redragon. Except this time it wasn't at the hands of Made in Heaven. Made in Heaven still in that area, and now they'll be able to face off against LCDF as we check in on some more early game battles. 2R1C here. Uchako trying to do a little bit of poke damage with that 30-30. I love that we're getting this much out of these teams so early on.
Hey, it's my litmus test for early rotations. 2R1C is the quickest rotating team. So if you see them shored up somewhere, there's a probably good chance that that's where I'll see our zone end. And for cybercats right alongside them, that only reaffirms this choice. But for Uchako, I don't know how long you can sit on that sniper tower.
As long as no one is feeling comfortable enough to push him, like you said, cybercats over here as well. These teams trying to set up camp as they know where these zones are going to start pulling. Another southern zone here with UAIM, cybercats, 2R1C. Anyone who's down here is going to try and claim this building space while they can, and also make sure they zone everybody away. And we saw cybercats do that last time around. The fuse came in super clutch for them, so we'll have to see what they can manage this time.
Something to know about cybercats is they do not, though, have the holding control unit of, say, something like a Catalyst or Watson, though, to lay down some really heavy stake into these buildings, and that can come back to bite them if they're not careful. Say they get into an excursion with one team, they are very susceptible about getting taken down or rushed out.
All right, now we get a look here at that map like we were talking about. You had mentioned 2R1C rotating in really quickly. Means they're probably trying to hold a spot in the zone. Cybercats, another great zone for them based off of their drop. GoNext is in there. ANC Outplayed. We saw how well they did rotating in early last time and claiming a spot. They've done it here yet again. The southern edge is already so full of these squads.
Notably, I will say, TSM Phoenix this time around able to actually foot their way into zone, weren't punished on the rotation. Granted, are starting to take some of those shots. Alpha Trap shot out from above and fully wiped from the extension from the likes of the Rats here. TSM's got to be a bit careful now. And there's a duo in with a bombardment out on their side.
Looking for a little bit of a disengage there out of TSM Phoenix as Cybercats continue to hold out strong. Passing off some of those cells, try to keep everybody healthy as this poke just continues happening. Sabs and Kyrie in a little bit of a pickle down there. Gonna have to get themselves a reset as the cat wall was forced, but they are able to at least hold out for now. Because, you know, the last thing they want to do is go out considering there's still 19 squads up.
This is really tough, especially being out in front of this building here. Anyone coming from the northern side of pylon into these hills, I mean, you can already see how much TSM is taking in terms of damage from those opposing shots. And the sad truth is there isn't a lot of space to contest for some of these buildings. You might have an option to pull back down towards the southern side and find potentially a bit of fissure, but realistically speaking, we know the zone's going to pull up this direction, so bunker down, hold out.
Got that Crypto doing a little bit of scouting work here, trying to give some more information to the rest of 2R1C. He's still hanging out on the sniper tower, Zephyr. He doesn't seem inclined to move anytime soon.
I think with the buildings looking a little bit more tempting, you know, that has kind of found its way into a place of safety. For LCDF, I'm looking to see how these guys are getting safe. Surprisingly, really some extending rotations all the way back up to the northern side of zone, negatively going away from the pull here. I mean, this is the kind of aggression we saw from their start over by the wall and making their fights there. I'm curious if they come up behind someone else this time around.
Potential if they go through Cascade Falls, obviously, to come up behind Passion and Forge, those teams that were contesting there in match number 1. Forge all the way already down in the zone. Passion moving a little bit more slowly on the rotation, but both of them still alive. So we were wondering if the contest would still happen. One of them looks like it didn't, and both those teams are healthy and ready to go as they continue on their way down towards the southern portion of the map. Checking in here on some of our more edge teams. LCDF getting a little bit of information here, and this will be super helpful for them when they decide how they want to attack this next rotation.
Yeah, I like this. They get an early idea of where that zone is finishing, so what could be the closest gap for them to close here in terms of making that at least forward push. And if they've already checked out the northern side, they're learning from last time. They've cleared out their back end, and they know for a fact that they're clean to go for this move now and maybe potentially pick up some KP or play out from the stack.
Now on board with E6, another team that is in a better position based off of their drop down there in Devastated Coast as they're making their rotation through, fully decked out in red and looking to do a little bit of damage here on this rotation. Nice shots out of CJ, trying to clear out the squad in front of them, and it looks like Yolu is going to be going down.
I really like this from E6. They know on this next zone close that if they are the ones in complete control of the east here with that full damage on their backside, keeping them safe, this is going to be something that gives them that next push forward. They're not going to do it just yet. They want to make sure that there's no late stragglers, potentially some kids late for the school bus here before they go for the full take. But granted, rotations have already come through in the opposing end, and Swinny's starting to set up for what will be their next move forward.
definitely put themselves in a comfortable position, like you said, to wait on the stragglers coming around for those late rotates on the eastern side of the map. Now on board with ESG, though, as they're making their way almost right towards the top end of that zone, safely pushing through this choke here, not having to worry about anyone directly in front of them, but a few of those later rotating teams will eventually come across their path as we now check in with 40% worse and VexX, see what's going on here in this engagement. Not pushing each other yet, but just trying to test the waters.
It's not great, and they've got to figure out what to do, but only the players are the ones who can decide that. Let's take a look.
North as well, so just know that. We hold and shoot. Heal up if you need. Yeah, we're gonna have to craft here. We're gonna have to make these guys fuck off and craft.
Yeah. I'm not kidding. I haven't hit the shot yet, but they're right here, right?
Close. Yeah. I'm popping a med kit.
Okay, they're fighting us.
Okay, we need to kill this, guys.
We need to kill them right now. Play right side with me.
Yeah, do it. They're still holding, I think. Yeah,
I have no medkit, by the way. I have no medkit, dude. I need to get a medkit.
We need to grab medkits.
I'm gonna die this one.
Kill this. Cracked one almost. Down me.
I need more medkit.
Go back and play your left, maybe.
We could.
I'm dead, play live, bro. These guys are fucking bricked in that.
What the fuck?
Try and pull away. It's VexX being a bunch of...
That was a tough spot for them to find themselves in. They knew they were going to have to start making that engagement quickly as the ring was closing on them, and VexX were just able to catch them out. I mean, Mandy able to escape for 40% worse, but now in a tough spot trying to wrap.
Nah, it doesn't get easier in terms of making their way across. They have to eclipse the entire other side of Pylon to get into this zone here. And I'll tell you what, for VexX, it's to no surprise. This is a team that loves to get out there on the edge and get crafty, picking up some of that KP. They're probably one of the most aggressive squads we have in this lobby, and it comes at the suspicion of some of the other teams regarding their decision-making. But hey, points are points.
All right, well, now we're looking at LCDF, and this is the area that ESG was just in, so I'm assuming that's who's on the other receiving end of these shots. LCDF continuing through their late rotate. It wasn't Passion that they came across. Now these two teams are battling it out here in the middle of this area, potentially drawing some attention their way as well, so this is a dangerous spot to find themselves having to fight. They'll have to make a choice here on how aggressively they want to take it.
This is really tough, especially with the evac from behind, likely off the outskirts of Made in Heaven there. That's going to dissuade a lot of the pressure that they want to apply to this. And with the delay of time comes issues later on here. For E6, though, it doesn't seem like they've really found any issues. I mean, this looks like less than that, a solution to be said. Height's a great place to be when you're up against Passion.
E6 looking much more comfortable this time around, getting a little bit of extra loot for themselves. 202 looking their way, but those smokes should do enough to give them the cover they need just to quickly check those death boxes and get whatever they want to grab before they continue through. And this was a really solid choice as far as clearing out some space, like we had seen them on the eastern edge, as you had pointed out the first time around Zephyr. Now they've kind of rotated a little bit towards the north to see who is going to be late making their way in and seeing if they can clear them out, as we get a chance to see what's going to be happening here with the Lone Rat and Mandy, LCDF and Made in Heaven over here, all in the same area.
Potentially a zip line, but I'll tell you what, that's a red flag waved upon the air for Mandy, just ratting this one out and keeping it silent and slow. We know for a fact that E6 gave up the eastern side. The question of whether or not it is truly applicable or playable is something that, well, Mandy will learn quite soon here. Squad on his left and potentially a space and zone. Gonna rip the zip line out either way. I mean, we'll see if he's able to survive that one. I mean, giving away position.
Care package over there.
Might be just enough to get him out of dodge safely, but the further in to the zone he gets, the more chaos will start to kick off right now. LCDF definitely not looking his way, as it looks like they've got Redragon right in front of them. The black hole does go down, and LCDF just looking to try and clear this squad out right on their left. Some shots coming out of Psycop, doing some work here with the car, but trying to clean up and make sure they end Redragon's opportunity. And that was Jukes going down. Kozak barely alive right around the corner there, Zephyr.
I'll tell you about E6. They're going to see if they can try and take advantage of this. It's great moves from LCDF to put into space that they absolutely need to have with the success of that KP, but E6 don't seem to be any slouches to getting into the action. Let's take a listen in and see what their moves are.
Yeah.
Bang, 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 bang. Horizon cracked.
I can't see. Bang one. Bang dead. I'm walking up.
Nice. Can we go?
I'm scanning for you.
No smoke.
I'm swinging on the cat. 18 on the cat. I'm swinging him.
Cat in. I'm finishing. Come on.
He's chasing you, chasing you, chasing you.
No. Nice. Nice.
I got the red.
We got Shoopy,
I can't shoot that. I got the...
Stick that.
I think they're close, I think. Close. Yeah. They're on the left, I ulted them. On me. I'm gonna pay for this kill. I'm batting. I got sniped through the smoke. Bang, I killed one.
Yeah, I can't die, yo, boys. Like.
Yeah, no, he just swung around, like.
Yeah, but we need to aim that guy, bro.
That was so close to going E6's way. I mean, Vex heard the commotion and pushed over, but CJ was dealing some serious damage. They were even able to stick the res onto K-Swinny. He got that shield swap. It just wasn't enough. And I mean, there's not a whole lot they could have done in that situation.
No, and the numbers disadvantage right off the bat there with great peaks overhead. Vex continue to show how they get into these fights successfully through and through with their second pickup now of the game. We'll see if they can make that transition into zone here in just a moment. For ESG themselves looking, will take out potentially great spots ahead of 202 here. Not much realm to explore past the Dark Veil.
All these teams here on the outskirts really putting in a lot of work for anyone who's managed to make their way into the zone as ESG and 202 face off. You see Nasty going out in the kill feed as well from 07 as everyone's trying to vie for a little bit of safe space as this ring closes. And just playing around the edge of this mountain here is not allowing for a lot of cover when it comes to 202, and ESG is just going to be able to push up and dump damage down onto their heads.
I'll tell you, when it comes to my buds, Anthony, it's like shooting fish in a barrel here for ESG, and they'll shoot from above with the grab lift in place, stuck behind the edges. They haven't quite finished it off. Lufka looking for position instead, going to take it above, and will drop down from with the bolt in hand. Oh.
Yes, they decided it was taking too long, Zephyr. They're like, no, we're sending it.
Hey, if there's anything from Lufka, that's a guy who comes with a style of play. We got to check it out last year, especially with this time alongside like a sharing crew. But for now, we got to see if they can dance their way into this building ahead. Teams like 2R1C, like TSM Phoenix, who in the meanwhile just took out Vex before this, they're going to be with their eyes peeled. Whew.
Dang. Still, Uchako putting in work from that sniper tower, has been holding it the entire game and dealing so much damage for the squad of 2R1C. But now, as the ring continues to shrink, where they are is no longer safe. They're going to have to figure out the timing on how they want to not only drop down, but then move a little bit west there. And there's multiple teams around them that are going to be looking to do the same or trying to gatekeep them from doing that safely. So this is where things are going to kick off.
I do love, though, the height in play here that gives them so much of the access to making that decision. ESG coming through from the other side will assist in the elimination of Aurora, but they still have to worry about 2R1C on their backs. A fence line keeping them just barely safe here, and instead it's cybercats from the other side that's able to take them out. And, well, ESG, I mean, they're going to take advantage of UA when they can.
Really strong job fighting continuously here on the edge on behalf of ESG. They're moving in, taking out UAIM. Now only have to worry about cybercats in front of them here as they try to hold these stairs. Just fantastic job. I mean, they look so strong right now.
Really good cleanup on the edge there, taking their time and really pacing out their aggression in those fights is what gives them their advantage, kind of being that third party in all of these situations. Allows them to rep their KP, but now, as we come to our final three, A and C, GoNext and ESG, GoNext once again reappearing in a final zone of the day.
Now, I want to point out, GoNext was here with Forge while we were watching that fight with ESG and cybercats. GoNext were able to clear out Forge. Now they own this space unto themselves, and they have those death boxes at their disposal to prepare for this final 3 back and forth. All teams full, and all teams giving themselves the reset here before the last shrink comes in. It'll be interesting to see which team makes the first move.
If ESG can push ANC out of this choke in to the other side of at least GoNext here, that would give them their success. But it's going to come down to, well, how much ANC are actually looking to win this one out. They know their backs are against the wall, and the call for second is always available.
ANC outplayed right now. Set themselves up comfortably with those fences, making it so that nobody really wants to push in on them just yet. But as they have to make the choice to move in, they're the ones that are on the farthest portion of the zone. They're gonna have to be pushed in first, move past these fences, and you know that these teams have ANC outplayed in their line of sight. ESG have moved up. They got a little bit of a rock here for cover, trying to do some damage. GoNext, though, still safe in their original position, and this is going to be down to GoNext.
It's a great move in here as ESG are able to capitalize and send ANC outplay home, but the reset needs to come just as quickly from above. Kashi takes advantage, takes L-Stars, and puts GoNext in the driver's seat for the second win of the day.
GoNext did such a good job there. Like I said, they were holding that area for a little bit. Forge had moved in, and they quietly removed Forge from that area, knowing that it was going to be the god spot to play from. It was so well strategized on behalf of GoNext. I mean, that was just a strong performance.
And the crazy thing, too, is when we talk about the minor silo cover that they have in play there, they actually lose that out in a much earlier fashion. So the damage that they throw onto ANC outplay there in this kind of tug-of-war battle between them and on the other side allows them to actually deliver on that win in the end. Had they not been able to put out the pressure, put out the poke, ANC would have maybe potentially walked on in them instead.
Yeah, that was a really strong performance on behalf of a lot of teams. I mean, to be fair, we still saw cybercats finding themselves really far along in that game. Talk about a resurgence out of LCDF. I mean, they wanted that after match number 1 not really going their way. Even E6 coming in strong there. I mean, they were slaying when every time we jumped in on their fights. That was just an unfortunate situation when it came to Vex. That was a third party they couldn't do a whole lot about, but they had played really flawlessly up until that point, going for a lot of those kills on the edge of the zone as opposed to trying to move in and hold a position once they realized just how many teams had already managed to get in there. So lots of teams making improvements just from one match to the next.
Exactly, and especially when we talk about improvements in terms of zone play, teams like 2R1C, we know for a fact that they're going to be there, but especially for a squad like TSM Phoenix, who were discussing some of the difficulties, or at least what we got to see from that first game, immediately making the turnaround into a position of play with a zone that is arguably just as close as what we saw from game 1 there. And even though they lose out on Alpha a little bit early on, they were still in the midst of those fights. They were the ones participating in bringing Vex down when we saw those at least early exchanges.
And then, I mean, we're going to even earlier exchanges. We were asking, would some of those contests stop? Some did not. Okay, we saw both Passion and Forge surviving their contest, but we saw that Redragon struggled a little bit. LCDF moved over to the wall to try and jump in on some of that action with Made in Heaven. And I think Full English went out in their contest too, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So we saw a little bit of changes to that super early game when it comes to those drops. Some teams opting to play a little bit safer and not want to have to go for that fight. So we'll see what happens now in the third and final match on Storm Point. It'll be interesting to see if we continue to see those small changes being made.
I was going to say, the wall is definitely the place to look at more than anything. We know that we're going to see ASG and the Fall English continue contest for Zeus, but especially with LCDF now kind of as this third potential threat to get involved, that can always stir up the action between Made in Heaven and Redragon.
All right, well, let's see what the final numbers ended up being. Who had the kills? And GoNext with 10 kills, followed by ESG at 13. These two teams were slaying out, Zephyr.
It is a solid start. One that you typically don't see, but one that pulls the points away from the rest of the lobby there. Cybercats, the only other squad to walk away with a double-digit score line. Everyone else, even though we haven't seen the second half, I assume to be low on the single digits.
I mean, this is just a classic point sponge. Everything is at the top. The fact that they tied first and second when it comes to those total points at 22, that is a strong performance. And no, we were wrong, Zephyr, because it was LCDF and E6. We talked about their aggression. It might not have paid off in placement points, which is something we talked about with LCDF even at the top of the show, but the slaying power actually helped them a lot here when it comes to those points.
And I love being the broken record of repeating what my main man Rain Day loves to say, but if you're hitting that 8-point average, that's the place to be. It doesn't matter how you do it. For a team like LCDF and even Element 6, who we're still looking to see them shore up what we know can be a great day, this is definitely a better result coming out of our second game here.
Man, that was a fun one. We'll take a look, a little bit of a team comparison here between GoNext and ESG because of just how strong this match was for both of them. 4,600 damage out of ESG. I mean, that is a fantastic second place finish if I've ever seen one, Zephyr.
I think really taking advantage of that slow rotation up, of course, over onto the edge of 202 and capitalizing in full force, but then not getting ahead of themselves, not getting into the buildings of action, really trying to play ahead into that 6th and final zone and eliminating squads like UA and assisting in the ends of teams like Cybercats, allow them to put up that additional 1,300 damage on the board.
I also love what we're seeing out of GoNext because it proves that they didn't just early rotate and then do nothing holding that spot. They fought their way through on the rotation. They did really well in the mid game and then were able to clean up those squads there at the end. As we now get a look here at our overall series results, we can see where everyone is standing. Cybercats up at the top by 3 points. They've just looked so consistent so far today.
It's a solid start, but it is one that we put with a tick regarding the southern presence of our zones. I'm still looking to test this roster. Speaking of tests, though, definitely a challenge for teams like AURORA, 2R1C, Element 6, who in the past, and even 07, who have been consistently above the pack when we see them match up in these lobbies.
It'll be interesting to see what our teams do as we continue on throughout the match day here so far, but we've got to talk about something, okay? And we're going to keep talking about it all day because season 20 is right around the corner, and everything you thought you knew, well, it might be different, whether it's competing in an updated ranked system that incentivizes combat or playing in mixtape and making your debut in Thunderdome. Season 20 will have you instantly queuing up for the next game. The new LTM Straight Shot will drop you into an even quicker Battle Royale experience, all while you earn the new reactive R99 skin and more with the Battle Pass. So gear up and flex your style, legend. The world is watching.
Being a legend? Nah, it ain't just about winning, mate. It's an attitude you show up with. And bring every bloody drop.
Put in 10,000 hours. What a rush! I leveled up? Hell yeah!
Choice. Gonna get rough as guts.
Come on now, bring it. Here we go. Patching myself up a bit. I never quit.
All eyes on us. We can't hide it when you just fly. You don't need no pilot. That's the best you got, mate.
You can't crash this castle.
Way too real, need a moment of silence.
Better luck next time.
Look at the time, stuck in my prime to be this good. Should be a crime. Top of the line, one of a kind. Built for it all. Still on the ground, we coming.
You really thought you belonged in here with professionals?
We survive.
You misguided sod.
You think that's it? You aren't ready for this dance.
So tell me when to go. Feel bad when you came from the floor.
Underestimate me and pay the price.
It's our turn. Yeah, we got next. Lights, cameras, high standards. Touch the top of that mountain. Nothing we cannot handle. Crowd, favorites, world's greatest. And I'm still with the same team. It's us versus everything.
I love when the spotlight's on me.
I'm
always watching.
You want to be a real legend.
Zoom in, zoom out, zoom up.
Game's changing, mate.
All eyes on us.
So however you used to drop. Hardly a challenge. It's time to drop a little hotter.
The game's changing, mate. Look, a lot of things are changing. Not only the entirety of the perk system all along the side of the Evo Shield changes, but man, do we have some really cool rewards for you for the 5th anniversary of Apex. Because where were you 5 years ago when Apex dropped? It's not just like consistently grinding in those lobbies. It has been a journey. And even those skins, the colored skins for the anniversary collection, kind of that teal, the black, it all looks clean. But let's talk about this here, Zephyr, because you can earn breakout rewards when 6 legends become unlocked during the season. Now, granted, if you're a grinder, you've probably already got them unlocked, but maybe convince your friends to drop in for the first time, because you can complete challenges to keep them forever as you work towards even more rewards, like a reactive flatline, which boasts the same iron sights as the Season 4 flatline that we all know and love. You can even get a legendary Wraith skin and a set of matching cosmetic trackers. But Zephyr, anything that you're specifically keeping your eye on when it comes to the anniversary or even the Legend Select here for Map 3?
I'll tell you what, I love the fact that Respawn worked with the creators, especially to bring in some incredible skins from, you know, Vicky Palami, sorry.
I got you, Vicky Palami.
Thank you. To Girl and Shiv, as well as even our friend Rain Day, who gets to have
Rain Day's got an R9.
R99 skin. I genuinely, I cannot wait to get my hands specifically on those, because those are the creators I love, and they love the game just as much as I do.
It's really cool how we are giving so much back to the community, because the community has really given us so much in the Apex comp scene, whether they're at home working on the power rankings, grinding through VOD reviews over on Twitch, the watch parties alone. Lock it all in as one cohesive community, because it's our final match on Stormpoint, and if we get that North Pad zone, Zephyr, I will cry.
I don't think it'll happen this time around, but granted, you have some kind of mysticism that you've potentially found your way to during the break. For Forge, hopefully they found their way to some better loot and some better action here. 30-30 in hand, a couple of hip-fire shots as Phoenix and Slayers have already delivered double drops on their end.
Well, there you go. Passion eliminated, and the Forge will emerge victorious from Cascades. And, you know, I did light a little bit of a manifestation candle, but will Full English be able to survive in Zeus? Because Light still alive and Blast 1 HP in a dream. Can't make it happen, though, because Noise has got the Nemesis, and he just had the better of the weapons. But for Light, who has had such a standout performance thus far on this match day, you have to disengage. You can craft accordingly. You have Conduit to support Legend, and you need to focus on the series as a whole. But for Full English, they'll actually get to play.
Now, I do like the fact that ESG take a step away from this exchange. Something to note, though, is that Redragon have officially given it up there. Not directly against Maiden, having to start things out more upwards towards some of our no-names endings of the wall and potentially into the Full English. Now, Tiff.
Zephyr.
I know.
Zephyr.
I know. You are a sorceress. You are a wizard. You are something above.
Do we really get a North Pad? No, I'm not gonna cry, but for real, LCDF, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm the real script writer here.
That is genuinely terrifying. I remind the folks at home that these are randomly generated.
The RNG is real, and Redragon alive all three of them.
This is crazy.
And they're towards Zeus.
Redragon.
It could get interesting. We love that voice line there from Horizon. Perfect.
I cannot wait. I cannot wait for the full English
what?
to rotate east. No.
I mean, we do have the triple white from the
won't.
Redragon here. Now, there is something to be said about this squad. I think the mechanics from Kazakh are so incredible. Just watching, Du will put up an absolute montage on their own. But for the entire trio, I think there's going to be a lot of work, but a little bit of ratting goes a long way, and the Redragon team ensues. Kazakh goes down first. Fidu here with the Spitfire needs to make something happen, but a little bit of a Skynade and a smoke and a dream, and we are dipping and diving out.
The lack of patience. Some would say finally getting in because they just decide to. And as a result, Bryn, hosting an excellent off angle due to just current positioning, is able to capitalize on Redragon almost immediately. On top of the fact that, yes, sitting on triple napkins is always, worst place to be.
Yeah, it's not really ideal situation here, and I was hyping up Kazakh's kind of just ability for the mechanics, and of course they're the first one to go down, but that's just because caster curses are inevitable at this point in time. If you're talking kindly about a team and hyping them up, chances are they're gonna fall, and well, 2 of the Redragon members still alive, and turning our tides over to GoNext, currently in second in points, 32 points just from the first 2 maps. Position themselves down in Red Room as a lot of teams are starting to get the understanding and the knowledge that we are moving into Northpad.
Now, a big notable here is for GoNext. This is the shortest rotation they've ever actually had to make today. Coming out of the mill, they're able to get into this position relatively early. They don't beat ANC, who is just above them, to that high ground that can be so advantageous on at least the platform. But still, Red Room can be just as good. Granted, can choke itself out if it is not privy to the pull here. Granted, I am starting to see a little bit more of a Western take here. Watch out for that peninsula where we see no one stand. No one can play it early, but granted, kind of making that rotation can be a challenge.
Ooh, yeah. Especially the areas around Down Beast, kind of where the tail is. That's where we see a lot of people get choked up on. So I think it's a good shout that it's not one of those places that you can play early in the match, but for end game and maybe some of our later edge teams, it'll be a really nice slot in for them. But vying, kind of jockeying for position here into Northpad itself is going to be Made in Heaven, Outplayed playing the very top, which kind of makes sense, especially if you have Watson on your roster, you throw a Jenny up, but for Made in Heaven, they slipped a little bit after map number 2, and they need to get more points. So moving straight in to GoNext, already eliminating them. But here comes a third party, because LCDF is going to take some angles on this.
Yeah, for LCDF, it's far from the difference of what we've seen from them, at least in Game 2, getting into the action against Made in Heaven last time around. But that fight maybe not as quick or advantageous as they hoped. So, going to be pulling back. Psychop especially sitting on literally just 1 there. Will extend for a full median, even potentially 07. I do want to point this out, though, that ANC Outplayed have not moved at all. In fact, they're almost, I hesitate to say it, but they might be ratting the top of that platform, just waiting.
Let them rat. Let them rat. There is no way, when you think about the majority of the teams in this lobby being that heavy edge zone play style, a lot of the teams that do play zone, they would have already chose that as a position. So making your rotation in late, maybe you come in from an evac tower or whatever to try and buy for that high ground, you are not going to think that that is free. You have to be able to approach it thinking someone is up there. I don't care how good of ratting ANC Outplayed is.
I'm just waiting for a transition point as we get into the later game where someone's like, I gotta get up here. Oh, you know what, height. I'll just take height. And Outplayed, who assuredly doesn't even need the Evo or damage, sitting on purple right now, might just say, all right, okay.
Sure.
Fair
freebie. Enough. Fair enough. You sure about that? Cue up the comedian. We'll have so many memes going through.
John Cena?
What?
The comedian?
Excuse me? Nah, I can't think of his name, but I saw his Netflix series with a bunch of skits, and I want to see his stand-up live, so one day. But for 40%, where's Mandy here on the Pathfinder, taking a journey out towards Zeus? It looks like he's hunting. And if you're hunting light, I completely understand, because why not, Mandy? Why not?
Taking some time over on the edge. might be looking for some craft more than importantly than anything. Probably one of the last ones to get in. Granted, sitting on 4 bats, 15 cells, a medi, and a syringe. I mean, you don't need it. Granted, I don't think light is the prime factor of what they might be here for.
Ooh, light just curious to see. No, not going to take the jump tower. Wants to go a little bit by foot, but we already had the inventory here for 40% worse. They get the crafter. You can see the crafting rotations thanks to our beautiful team of production back in the back. You still have that energy mag, the laser sight, the purple bag and helmet. So overall, a lot of people picking up that Volt want that energy mag. You can see Mandy already has it, grabs that backpack, and always protect the head, right? We know a lot of people love to use the 30-30 and the wingman's everywhere, but protect the helm as much as possible.
We'll take a look at Zone here just to catch the tail end of ESG back on over to the wall where they'll meet their previous aggressors, the Phalanx and Redragon, who have yet to move on. Our Zone, though, most notably hosted with 2R1C, one of the first times we actually haven't seen them gotten into a great position deep in, but granted, still very good for playing on the outside of the stack. E6 getting aggressive.
Hey, they need to, right? This is the match day where they always have to like really step up because they've been so dominant on their other showings. Meanwhile, 07 takes out Vex. But it doesn't seem like this will actually occur. Element 6 still focusing on getting towards that next zone. They do have to go through a choke point here, and it looks like they might run into some other squads. For now, full English, they're still heading.
Full recovery, English. Stunted, though, with a rolling thunder. This will prevent a lot of what they want to do. Instead, contesting for height above with a great grab lift. Love the repositioning there, but a building is just as good to defend against the height. Something of a roof to be had, actually, on the northern side of our map.
Yeah, but time is of the essence with that ring steadily closing in on them. It'll be here before you know it, so I hope this engagement lasts no more than 30 seconds. Noises just kind of acquiring the squad, waiting for the drop. Rakafaka, though, with the reinforced door. Gonna play alongside of it. I love how the team 202 is kind of spread out, trying to hold the cross angles, and Bryn steadily but surely breaking in with the digi threat through the smoke. You're able to get a good bit of entry damage through, and we just barricade on in. Full English, with already getting their first knock, are turning the tides in this engagement.
From behind the pillar, Bryn is unable to take advantage of a 30-30's ADS, but Noises and Surdell deliver where key. Zone, you can hear it hovering on the outside, the loud of it as it crosses through here. The English, they'll take advantage of the resources that they find to make sure that they stay healthy. With even Redragon double white on blue, looking to see if they can maybe get some...
Are they gonna try this again?
This
same
is
squad,
crazy.
the same ratting.
Oh, they give themselves away.
Oh, here we go. You grab blue, you throw the black hole, and you focus on the rotate. This is the biggest game of cat and mouse that I have ever witnessed.
That is absolutely absurd there. For Redragon, they will get in towards the southern side of our choke and hopefully will find themselves a place. I'm curious to see who's actually potentially covering some of those chokes here, because for a team like Redragon, seeing as low health as they are, I don't think survivability is something that they have in their wheelhouse. For Light, though, it seems to be something that he has learned very well.
Yo, Light is struggling. 6 bullets in the 30-30, 2 shield cells, White just out there between a rock and a hard place with the zone at their back. Just trying to stay alive, you know?
There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Granted, this is not a tunnel, it's a fissure. And it's one that LCDF seem to be barreling towards at lightning speed.
Bro, mind here, closing the distance. I don't even think they know Light is here, but Dolgarin inside Beast of the Hunt. If they even get a whiff of the Bangalore on there. But for now, still shooting all the flatline bullets and none of them connecting, but it was a really solid effort.
Good tries for ESG's Light. He will find himself a bit of a pineapple and what looks to be cover for now, but this is just as far, if not further, from where he needs to go. Oh. No heals, I assume, either. I'm going to make a bet that there are 0 syringes for this man.
If only this was season 20 and you could just pop a smoke and start healing. But alas, we wait till post February 13th. Full English lose out on noises, but the Radiant transfer does come through. So for the next few seconds, they will have some shields. Just kidding, we're getting finished here. But Noise is still able to call out for the squad as ANC Outplayed is just ahead of them.
Now we'll take down a double on Redragon here, even with the extension of a large spit with Fit2. Now the only remaining member. Barely does Dell miss out on some knock drop damage here, as the English rotating around the other side of this building should be able to potentially find Fit2. And even if they do not, we'll be able to gatekeep this rotation. Sir Dell, especially, really biding his time.
Ah, yes, good comms. This was Redragon, and now they're eliminated. So we can set our sights knowing safely that ANC Outplayed is still deep into North Pad, but that coveted engagement between the Full English and Redragon has finally ended. Element 6, though, still at southern side of the zone, keeping their eyes towards this gazebo here, nearby trenches. They're controlling a lot of space and sitting on triple red here, but we need to find a good bit of eliminations to really get them into the fray.
Cracked. Peek on the outskirts there, barely doesn't check the corner and run into what could have been potentially a punishing end. And instead, for Element 6, this is something that could come back to bite them. Granted, shots potentially giving away the fact that there is a squad behind them. They make for immediate rotations at the thankful action of TSM Phoenix. Had that not come through, they would have never known.
Very true, but regardless, Full English was able to get points on the board. In the upper left hand of your screen, you'll see where that zone is pulling and who it favors. LCDF playing outside on that further westernmost finger towards the edge, kind of barricaded around the supply bins. So a really solid position for them. But for Passion UA, they've also made a move to play in the center of those extensions. So curious to see how our teams that have not made it deep into North Pad will hit that rotation, and while Element 6 clearing out through the trenches.
Taking their time there, might be on the rotate to find AURORA potentially alongside them. My apologies, for 40% worse over here on the side. We're able to find a bit of damage down onto ANC, but they themselves taking just as much in return from low ground presence. Need to find a way to access the POI itself without getting shot from above, and the same can be said for TSM Phoenix.
TSM Phoenix sabs down Kyrie, trying to stay alive, and now the lone standing alpha. We've seen this before. We knew it was going to be tough to play down here, and they were trying to make it work. For the disengage, the double time, the Phoenix kit will never come through, but TSM Phoenix will be eliminated. We turn our attention towards 40% worse, losing out on Shiv and Zeri and Mandy. Just cannot find a good position because there are so many squads making their way in that they are constantly being pressured.
Zerfer almost brought down by the knuckle cluster from Cyber above here, able to find the incredibly slowest of heals, but granted, not much of a health to work on in regards. And Heaven below just as well as E6, as we tune back into them, losing out on Cracked as a result.
CJ down and out, and there's gonna be no chance to get him back. I look towards to see if we have any Mobies, but it's not going to be there. cybercats, though, having a strong performance and remain up top. 40% worse will fall. We knew that was going to happen because they were just in such dire needs as AURORA has moved in towards the peninsula you were mentioning earlier.
Cyber, gotta be careful here. They themselves poked as they make their return on the outskirts and instead have to clean up Maiden Heaven Mine from below, posing just as much of a threat with the damage down and a knuckle cluster to zone things out. Cyber get the chance to reset after successful fighting. Yolu low with a response from Sanka to keep things alive, but another arc and another nade only goes to show how much Fuse makes his impact, but they luckily spot the drop of Alonzi from behind. A blink and you miss it move.
Still need plenty of time here. We still have to get a reset, but a reset might not happen. Dolgren, last standing, pushing forward, needs to reload the R9, but looks for the shield swap, gets it. We're back to blue. We've got the reload, but not with enough time. Outplayed checks the nail in the coffin. And now cybercats have plenty of time before they have to hit the ground running. We're going deep, and LCDF is waiting patiently for everyone to make a play for this next zone.
Incredible reset from cybercats there that comes with the benefit of double squads eliminated. You know that will continue to balloon the lead. We've already seen potentially continue to put them in a driving gap, maybe a first place. We've got World's Edge, but Stormpoint has made it look so. E6 here, 9 squads remain, and finally taking it up to the ground above.
Ooh, Aurora walk in for free, and Element 6 begin. With Case winning a swing and cybercats are gone into the top 8 and well-needed eliminations for Case Winnie. Cracked back up, jumps up, and immediately just starts sending it. Now Slab, last standing in the zone. Of course, you're going to fall for that, but Aurora getting into the mix and just eating apart Outplayed for 2R1C and the lone standing Light. This could be the last stand for them. I can't even believe Light's still alive as Passion UA down and out. Light gets found. We're into the final 4.
Aurora here on the outskirts, LCDF across from them. A major exchange of batteries before what can be some of these final fights as you show that Aurora are in more than good health here. Bit of refreshing Rolling Thunder, but Forge, 2R1C, Aurora, all coming from the exact same side of zone here. 2R1C might be looking to finish off Forge before they even get the chance to play.
Here it goes. We want to get into the final 3. Even 9 Impulse kind of extending out, looking for a piece of it, but it's all going to Myci. Forge eliminated, but the duo of 2R1C now has to use the cover of this Dark Veil to reset, but not before 9 Impulse is able to deal a significant amount of damage, but it doesn't even matter. Everyone is bleeding apart. 2R1C fall, and the final engagement between LCDF and Aurora ensue. The grab lift for Zedon to finish the nail in the coffin, and LCDF, their home of Northpad, they take your win in map 3.
We talked about it earlier, able to win from the POI you call home. For LCDF, they have had to deal with not just today's polls, but even the previous. Finally getting the opportunity after a beautiful spell was casted by Tiffany to put them in Northpad. They pick up the win they so well deserve.
I'm officially taking offers for the North American broadcast later. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Totally not.
How much?
That would be hilarious. I did light a candle, though, and I do have a beautiful candle. It's a manifestation candle, but we'll talk more on that later because I digress. LCDF winning their home zone. Beautifully done. My only question is, because they were able to maintain so much space away from all of the teams that were kind of from the actual compound of Northpad itself, how many eliminations were they able to grab? You know, because it just looked like it might have been anywhere from 3 to 5.
And to be honest, the same can really be said for the majority of those teams there, not just even LCDF, 2R1C going into Aurora as well here. While yes, they were present into some of our higher placements, in terms of the actual gatekeeping and showing presence regarding this game, it wasn't until the very, very end that we saw those fights. I look more towards teams like Heaven, Redragon over on the edge, the full English who made their return, who were picking up KP.
Well, let's see it. LCDF, 3 eliminations and 12 placement points for a 15-point game. Now, granted, I know they're working on the placement points. They already have the eliminations down, but we're moving in the right direction. From Aurora, from Cenote Caves to Northpad, they were able to grab 5 eliminations for a 14-point game, and 2R1C, another solid performance for them.
Down as we scroll there, Element 6 with 8 KP themselves, with the high presence of Edge really rearing its head. Cybercats do falter a little bit as they don't make that exchange, but there it is. I talked about as we came off, the full English really showing their tempo here, catering to the teams on their slow rotates.
Overall, very solid performance, and despite Redragon being a little, I almost want to call it petty, the way they were kind of trying to open up the door for an engagement throughout that map, only able to walk away with 1 eliminations for a total of 2 points. But for Passion, GoNext, even GoNext in particular, that needed to kind of bounce back off the win prior, that 22-point game. We'll have to go next and see what they do on World's Edge. But for the time being, I want to welcome back Glitter. Glitter was sitting there on the side, and we got to get our squad back for the halftime.
I mean, you said it really well, Tiff. It was the fact that LCDF said the one thing they wanted to focus on was nailing down those placement points. An opportunity was given to them with a zone that favors their drop, and they do exactly that. They might not have had the KP that we've seen them get in, games past, but it's about finding those small ones you can and starting to kind of mesh both of those playstyles together so they can figure out how to make it work at all times. But like you said, it is our halftime show. And this is one of my favorite parts because that means we get to bring in a guest today. We have the man himself. We have Kashera ready to hang out with us, talk through some gameplay. Kashera, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Okay.
What's
All
up?
right. To kick things off, I've got a question for you because we've been talking about it a lot. Obviously, we keep seeing all of these trailers. I want to get your thoughts on season 20. Obviously, we don't know anything concrete yet, right, until the season releases, but I want to get some maybe predictions on how you think that it could potentially change the competitive meta.
Well, the entire game is going to change. I'm very excited. It seems like the game is going in the right direction. I feel like it's one of those moments that an actual like gameplay change is going to happen. And I'm very excited. Like all these changes are going to be both to competitive or casual, with a lot of leaks, a lot of videos that were already put on YouTube. We were already able to study a bit, to think, to have different ideas on how we want to approach this new season. But at the end of the day, until we actually play, until we actually have those scrims and see how it all plays out, we can't really know for sure how it's going to be.
I mean, good vibes, right? I love that you kind of have already said that you're looking to theory craft. And we all know you love crypto. You've had a lot of really solid moments on crypto throughout, I believe, the past couple splits. And now that the EMP is getting bigger, right? Are we going to see a return to Kashera on crypto?
I'm definitely going to try. It all depends on how the game itself plays out. I think there's a lot of potential on crypto. I think there's a lot of potential in other characters. And it all depends on how teams want to approach the game, I guess. I feel like the most dominant teams are going to maybe stick to the same game plans. But I think if teams want to try new things, now is the time.
Okay, so when you say new things, what in particular are you looking at? If you had to name your ideal comp, regardless of scrims right now, what would you send out?
I don't think I want to. I don't think I want. I want to keep it for myself.
All right. I mean, that's respectable. We don't want to give anyone some ideas.
Few days. I think everyone will have their own ideas, but I think it's gonna be exciting, and that's about it. Even now, if we have some ideas, it maybe not even gonna translate to the actual gameplay. So I guess we have to wait. We have to test. It's gonna be fun, and yeah, I can't wait.
I know you're holding back quite a bit here. Just from the smile alone, you're thinking quite a bit about that season 20 change. And I know for the rest of Amakere, you guys have found quite an extension as well. But I want to hear you think about something else. Let's take a look at some of these final circles from today here, starting off with the win from cybercats. Give me your IGL, your intake regarding this end zone.
Yeah, as an IGL, it's a bit hard to know what cybercats has in their mind, like throughout the game. They just dominated the entire space from eco. They knew the zone was gonna end up being in this place, and I guess like this was a huge mistake from GoNext, being caught up here off position. If they were able to put this wall and let the game play out, I think OP was going to be forced to fight against Cats, and maybe they could have taken the win. But yeah, OP knew that they didn't have the control of the situation. They had to send it on the 3v2, and Cats was just able to position themselves in a way that they just dominated the entire time. Like, they knew what they had to do. They were in control of the entire end zone, and they end up winning with almost no effort, only putting their abilities on and just wiping the entire squads.
Of course.
Here on game 2,
and then as
ESG did a huge game.
Sure.
Yeah, did a huge game. ESG, they fight very, very hard. Same situation on ANC. They had no control of the situation. They couldn't do much. They just had to send it somewhere. They decided to send it to ESG, and they ended up giving the free win to GoNext. Yeah, both times it was a bit rough because ANC actually is playing really well today. They're finding themselves really good positions, but at the end of the day, those last circles, sometimes you just can't do much. and they ended up having to just full sand with not much cover, already very weak. It was just rough for them.
Do you think there was anything that could have been done on the outside from ESG here to pressure Outplayed off of them?
Maybe they could put a little bit more pressure, trying to push them into GoNext, but I think GoNext just does the same on the other side, and ANC at the end of the day they just had to send it somewhere. I don't think ESG could have done much. A bit unlucky that they didn't get any of the kills. They did almost all the work, but at the end of the day they have to take it. It was a huge game for them, and a second place.
And then, of course, as we kind of jump on over here to this finish with LCDF on the leg here, is there any way that any of these teams can stop this push from coming through?
From LCDF, I don't think so. Like they had such a big advantage on their positioning. Maybe AURORA could have played to get that #1 spot, but I think they played correctly. They played for the points. They saw the fight of 2R1C and Forge on the side. They knew that they could win that easily and they could get the second place. So they just took it. They just took the points that they knew they had. They prefer not to risk it. They are in a good position in Pro League, so they don't really have to do that. And yeah, LCDF, they just had to control the game. They just had to make sure that nobody griefed their game. Nobody just sent it for free on that backside. And they just took all the points, all the kills. In the end.
Yeah, and then unable to really come out on top here for AURORA with the damage in tow. Yeah, it's a quick cleanup from LCDF.
Yeah, pretty much like the three games ended up almost the same way. Both Cats, GoNext, and now LCDF, they just had everything on their side and they just took it. Like, these are smart teams that know to read what's in front of them. And yeah, if you give them the opportunity, they're just gonna take it.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Gashera. We also get an opportunity to look at the series results after that last match, see where everybody sits. Like you said, cybercats doing really well for themselves, even further in first place now after match number 3 for a total of 42 points. Moving on down, though, a few standouts on both sides of things. Obviously, Forge and 2R1C in 8th and 9th respectively, mostly because of their consistency with their placement points. And then on the flip side, we see the slaying power of E6 here. Kashera, do you have any thoughts on any of those teams?
I feel like E6 wanted to do more. They know that they're gonna have now the contest against LCDF, and that's gonna be tough, both for LCDF and E6. So both teams are already thinking, maybe we should have done more in this map. But yeah, it has been like an amazing 3 matches. I'm really happy to see ESG and GoNext on top. ANC, which is a team that is very underrated. They have been playing such good Apex, and they showed it. They were on the end games in every single game. Even though in this last one they died like top 6 or something like that. But all the teams that are playing top 4, top 5, they have been so consistent on their positioning. Brilliant rotates. They fight it. Even though they might have 3 games in the end, they had to fight to be on that position. They had to play the game correctly, and they did. And yeah, I feel like teams, for example, GoNext and ESG, that they really need a good day today. Showing up in this storm point, it leaves a lot of doors open for World's Edge.
Now, I know you mentioned ANC Outplayed as a team that you think is a little bit underrated, but now that we're kind of at the halfway point, obviously, for the season, are there any other teams that have stood out to you or surprised you so far in EMEA?
I guess today also Made in Heaven, which is a weird team to look at, because you never know what's gonna come out of there. Like, I still don't understand how they play the game the way they play, but it works out for them. And yeah, it has been quite a sight to see. I think like the top teams are not surprising. Like the top 5 of Pro League, it's the teams that have the most knowledge, the most experience. They know how to take advantage of others, and they are showing that consistency day in, day out. Other than that, maybe surprising, it's more the teams that are not performing as well. That, for example, ESG and GoNext, I really felt that GoNext, until the start of Pro League, they really had a shot to be one of those top contenders. ESG showed a lot of promise as well. But yeah, like Pro League is not one match day or two. It's an entire 7 if you reach finals, and there's still a lot of points to be earned. And let's see if things shake up until the end.
I love it. I love it. Well, Kashera, thank you very much for coming on and chatting with us. Can't wait to see you in your next playday.
Yeah. Thank you for the invite. Good luck on the rest of the broadcast, and I wish everyone to have fun on the next games.
Thank you. All right. Always love getting an opportunity to talk to some of our players, but it's not just the ALGS that has been running these last few weeks, but our Challenger Circuit has started as well. Challenger Circuit number 1 has concluded, and congratulations to NPC who won that first Challenger Circuit. All right, we've got Taylor, Flyzon, and Robin coming through in the first CC, trying to break into our ALGS here. I mean, Zephyr, you love to see it.
I was going to say, I actually got to cast that matchup there, and we got to see NPC deliver probably one of the most dominant games I've ever seen out of them, finishing the day with 101 points here. So for those of you who want to potentially be a challenger, we've got the second one coming up here March 2nd through 24th. And of course, you've still got 2 weeks to sign up and get a chance to compete and maybe find your way into Pro League.
All right, thank you very much, Zephyr, which means as we look towards World's Edge, it's time to send you on break, sir. A very well-deserved break, so we'll see you back here in just a little bit. Say bye to you for now. And Tiff, it's time for us to switch our focus. We're switching up maps. We're going on to World's Edge. Okay, we saw lots of teams show up on Storm Point. Are they going to be able to bring it now that we're changing things up on them?
I can only hope, right? And especially with bringing in Kashera, and he's like, the main question was the LCDF Element 6. Did we do enough on Storm Point to be able to withhold and be consistent throughout the rest of the series? So, of course, we've got our eyes onto Skyhook. I don't know if we'll actually see them directly contesting, because we've seen that throughout scrims, and it has just been one of the most, is brutal a good way to put it? It's a lot of heat. A lot of passion in that contest. Let me tell you that much.
You didn't have the footwork in at the end? No energy?
No footwork. I mean, look, if this green screen were larger, I would get up and I would just be like, show them I have no footwork, let's be real. But for our map rotation, we can see the winners: cybercats map number 1, GoNext match number 2, and then LCDF in their home ending of Northpad be able to take that victory. But for our first map in World's Edge, we have to start thinking, what do our drops look like, our historic rings, because it really tells us a story here. And as you see, we've been seeing that zone ending a lot up towards Monument. We got it on match day 1. I've seen it a ton in scrims. We even got it another time in match day 3. And even the Skyhook ending we saw the last time groups A and C, that was the map 3, and I manifested that one.
You
so
did.
Glitter, maybe you can manifest some more, right?
I don't know if I have your power. I might have to rely on you for that one and also get the lottery numbers at the same time, but I'm keeping my eyes on some of those southern zones. We even heard Kashera call them out. ESG, a team that he was impressed with here today, and they are down there where 2 of those zones finished last time these 2 groups faced off against each other. So that could potentially bode well for them if we get some more southern pulls.
And as we look at our drop spots, the contest that we've been witnessing, cybercats and VexX over at Harvester, but now 202 has left Stacks and have moved over to contest Mind at Tree, which is really interesting because then it gives ESG the ability to play Launch Site and Dome between those 2 POIs and leaves the entirety of Frag East open. So I'll be keeping an eye on specific rotations around that. Redragon, they go big mod. They typically grab all of the crafting materials. They'll go grab some Rampart special weapons and keep going. But now this is the prior match day zones along with the points that were accrued throughout the 3 maps on World's Edge on their last meetup for A and C. So cybercats was able to get 34 points in 3 maps alone on World's Edge, and they are already coming in with 35 from Storm Point. So this could be a totally different story for them.
I mean, there's quite a few things I'm kind of keeping my eyes on here. First of all, we've got a few teams that were in contest on Storm Point that aren't on contest here in World Edge, so an opportunity to get some points looking at the likes of Full English or Passion. But then also, last time these two groups faced off, this was 07 did really, really well on World's Edge, and we saw that they had a ton of points in that graphic, and they struggled in our first 3 matches today. So there is a possibility for 07 to kind of have a little bit of a bounce back here now that we're on World's Edge.
You're right, Glitter. They had a map win in 5 and 6, but we turn our attention over towards Harvester. Babylons themselves will drop down to the below, grab that R301, and immediately start tracking the horizon on cybercats, rejoined alongside. But when cybercats elect to play the fuse on the contest, the knuckle cluster will bring the pain.
This is a very, very hot way to start off World's Edge here for these two teams. Vex looking pretty strong. They've been having some really good engagements so far for themselves, but cybercats don't want to let that POI go. You also had mentioned it over in Tree, Mind and 202 in their contest. A little bit of a back and forth here as 202 looking to get some weapons so they can hopefully deal some damage. Take a little bit of poke, but not pushing anything too crazy yet, as only Formiskam has shields.
Not a bad job here. Center will smoke and disengage. Maybe look for a cheekier angle on Desanka. So we do need to keep that mind going through. Yolu, at one point in time, was the youngest player in EMEA region last year. Years go crazy. A little bit older now and a little bit more competitive experience, and they're going to seek to disengage towards the building on the outskirts of Tree. And Miskim opens it up, grabs that early knock onto Yolu, giving them the player advantage and allow them a little bit more aggressive because they were able to get that first knock without taking a bit of damage.
This would be a good opportunity here for 202 to clear this out, not only get that KP on the board, but get some nice momentum going to kick off the first match here on World's Edge. They go up to the roof and just melt, trying to clear everybody out here. And it looks like 202 is quite comfortable as they get the last kill. Mind goes down and 202 own the tree.
Let me just tell you, they just all won their ones. Every single player from 202 just able to navigate that contest perfectly. So I'm really proud of them to be able to continue on that journey here on World's Edge. For GoNext, they're in second place overall on the day, 32 points. So what?
I hate to interrupt you, but I need you to look at this.
I didn't say Skyhook, did I?
You did.
So hear me out.
You did.
With the way this is split,
concerned.
I'm looking where Forge is. The name is, I can't tell if the rings connect. Now, if the rings connect underneath Forge, that means you have a higher chance of it pulling towards Skyhook. Now, if there was a differentiating between and there was a little bit of a gap, it would bounce back to the other side. But I mean, it's looking Skyhooky.
I need to know what you have done and how to replicate it, because we are going north and teams are going to be making their way up there, starting to try and claim whatever building space they can find and is available. Redragon wanting to nail something down, not having to deal with a contest, but having to make a pretty long rotate all the way over from Big Mod, finding themselves a little bit stuck right now. And as these teams start to get that zone information, we're going to see them making some quick moves. I mentioned 07 earlier. They're trying to move past Harvester right now. Cat's not going to be paying attention to them at all, but 07 looking to get in there early.
Look, they need to. They acquired so many points with those back-to-back wins on the last match day showing, but for now, we have to turn the tides to ANC Outplayed and Redragon. Fitu already grabbing that opening knock, trying to get the advantage. But Made in Heaven in Skyhook will tune back to Redragon and ANC Outplayed in just a moment, but for now, Arctic throwing out the piercing spikes. But the res, you can kind of hear the audio cue, but doubling down, throwing nades to try and fend off. They are able to stick that res.
Made in Heaven, another team that even Kashira had called out for having a really strong performance today. Their slaying power has been on point, finding themselves here in a little bit of a back and forth as they try to hold down their position, getting their shields back up. And honestly, once they've laid claim to this floor, they should be good for a little bit.
This is one of those buildings that a lot of teams will try to play early on. 2R1C in a battle against Passion here on the other edge. YQ peeking with the 30-30, able to grab a knock, and it looks like they potentially had thrown the bang ult to avoid Passion to be able to cover the distance and capitalize off that initial knock. But where there's a will, there's a way, and 0-0 YQ and Denze just full sending.
Passion.
Evo shield here. Level 2.
Giving themselves a little bit of loot here as they continue to move through. Still 19 squads up as well. Not the same type of early game action that we saw in our Storm Point matches. Obviously less contests, but just the nature of World's Edge as our teams are making their way through. Passion should have a little bit of room now to move through Lava Fissure and find themselves on the western side of where this zone is going to be pulling. So they might have found themselves in a safe spot here. Back on board with 07 as well, who look like they have a clear path ahead of them too.
A clear path ahead, but a lot of work to do. Coming in just outside the top 15, they need to gather as many points on World's Edge as they possibly can, but rotating out through Landslide, of course, cybercats nearby. Landslide has been spawning a lot of crafters and has been the ideal stop for a lot of teams on their journey to out that kind of mid-game zone playing. So you need to make sure you hit the crafter, get your shields up, and they were taking a little bit of pokes towards 07. Gotta hit the beacon, grab that information, but as we see it now, Glitter, gotta get your ideas here, because I've seen the zone pull towards where Element 6 is, to the building to the left. I've seen it kind of end a little bit with the mountains in the way. I've also seen it pull back towards Countdown, kind of that choke area as well. So it could go that route, but no, it looks like we will stick to where Element 6 potentially is.
I was wondering if they were going to get this to go in their favor as well, because that bodes really well for both them and LCDF being up there already, being able to claim that space super early. We saw how aggressive E6 was being today, though, and it's an opportunity. Nice shot, Nasty, to get some points on the board for E6, but Nasty's coming through with the Kraber in hand, knocks Max Strafe, and 07 are going to have to try and make an aggressive push here, because now that they've drawn attention to themselves, everyone is looking their way, and they do lose Amphi on the push.
Let me just tell you the ability here for Passion UA to double down off that initial knock from Nasty onto Max Strafe. They've already got the res, they threw out the bangle, they grabbed the knock in full, and now 07 will be a duo. But you think back to their prior performance with that Skyhook ending, I believe it was in map 3 for the EMEA broadcast. That was where 07 actually went crazy with some nade plays towards the end game, and they won the Skyhook ending. But coming through, they did grab Amphi's banner, and there is a res just to the outskirts. But mind you, that's where already so many teams were playing, but Nasty has the Moby. Can he get it to come through?
I'm interested to see what they do. Obviously, this is an area that they've done well for themselves before, but as teams continue to rotate in, everyone who's been solidified is waiting to see who's flying in, what buildings they're trying to land on. Is there an opportunity for poke damage, especially towards the western side of that zone? Because there's a couple teams right on the outskirts that are going to have to move in as it continues to shrink down. You can see just how clustered up everyone is going to become. Still have a few stragglers on the outside as well, and this is where things are going to get dangerous. I was worried that Zero was going to take a little bit of damage there. Actually do okay and manage to claim this rooftop.
Really solid that they were able to get this for themselves, immediately get the pylon down and start fencing up thanks to Zero. Arctic off screen is just doing work on 07 with the Sentinel. Now we start to think about teams like you mentioned that are going to be the late arrivers to Skyhook. I'm immediately thinking of Redragon, AURORA playing off the survey beacon on the outside, that house that usually 99.9% of the time has a survey beacon on it. They'll hit that scan and start moving towards this choke point that cybercats is in. Now granted, when you're first overall for the day, you've survived your initial harvester contest and you got a ton of what? Anytime I can't. Anytime I see a Kraber shot, I'm just like, what? You hit that? Let's go. Can I see another one, please?
Add some flair. Give me some flair with it too.
Okay, not everyone can be MT from LAN, all right? Not everyone can do that.
It's going going to be very reminiscent of what we just saw pushing out of here. Kraber in hand from 07 this time now. Cybercats looking to see if anyone's paying attention to this area or if they can make a safe push across, but obviously those buildings right in front of them mostly occupied at this point. And now checking in with the team you had just mentioned, Tiff, Redragon on the edge of this zone, just biding their time right now. They've got AURORA right in front of them, and they'll probably have to at least create a little bit of noise here and see if they can push them out of the way if they want to have a safe push towards that skyhook area.
Thinking historically, I'm pretty sure Kazakh used to play the Bangalore for the squad, but they've moved it to another player, and typically Kazakh will play with the Rampart weapon longbow. We've made some adjustments here, and honestly, if Redragon can hold that position and really fend off AURORA and ESG, they will be able to just walk right into that free side of zone.
They'll have a nice little choke at their disposal. Granted, Passion might be looking their way as well, but Redragon have called this brilliantly, now putting themselves in a very, very solid spot as far as the zone goes, but will have to fend off ESG, AURORA. You can see ESG making the move, flying over AURORA right now. Where are they going to land? Is it going to be right on top of Redragon?
Lufka taking a chunk of damage, able to maintain maybe 2 HP left on that shield. Maybe 1 shot away from going down, but for now, they're inside the tunnel. And AURORA knows there'll be 2 squads that they will have to contend with on that rotation. So I'm immediately looking to see, do we have evac towers available? And once that zone pull comes through, and a lot of teams realize they have to move even deeper towards Passion in Skyhook, who took that building mere minutes ago for free via their own evac tower. I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do, and Bitu goes down here. It's just, I don't know what to say about Redragon, because they got the mechanics. We just need a little bit of the positioning work here.
You know, and I was just gonna say that they actually did a really good job. They pushed in and found themselves a spot on the slow side of the zone, so as long as nobody was going to be rotating towards them immediately, they should have also had time to set up on height and be able to see ESG coming through. Somehow ESG does it mostly unnoticed, and by the time they move in, they've dealt a lot of damage to Redragon. They're able to survive a little bit only because teams on the low ground are now looking the way of ESG. But I agree. I feel like that was almost really solid, perfect out of Redragon, and it's just Jukes is still down. It's not working out for them.
Jukes essentially threw their life to hit the Radiant transfer for the teammates. It's like the, no, Ron, no, what are you gonna do? You're gonna sacrifice yourself. That's what Jukes just did. Covered the distance, hit the Radiant transfer, and went down in the process. Now Kazakh and Fitu, they have the tower, and this will be in the next zone for them. ESG vying for a position just below them will essentially be relegated to a duo, but the Moby is here, and they should be able to get this off. But the issue with this is they're trying to bring back their Bangalore, right? So you can't just essentially smoke top a tower, hit the res.
Ooh. All right, well, it looks like Forge want to get in on the action as well. They ended up evac towering over. They dropped down on ESG, clear out the bottom, and now Redragon is what's above them as a 2-man. I don't know if they know it's a 2-man though, but Forge made an aggressive push there. ESG down to just 1 now.
Yeah, Light came back. They lived long enough for the res ship to show up. Now Light is that lone solo once again for ESG. Now mind you, they came into map number 4 in 3rd place. So any placement points ESG can conjure up for themselves is going to be vital. But for Forge, back up to the 3 here. After essentially wreaking havoc on the squads around. 18 squads up in round 4. It's what you like to see.
That was a massive play on behalf of Forge. Honestly, they were all the way on the west side of the zone, and evac tower all the way over to the east side to get involved in this fight, get some KP on the board, and now they can exist here for a little while, waiting for the zone to shrink. But we have to remember, AURORA was still outside the zone on that southeastern side. They'll be rotating through towards this sniper tower here in just a short while. So they have to keep their eyes on that choke area. And then, of course, as the zone continues to shrink, everyone that's now gathered is going to have to push back west, and it's just going to get really messy.
Oh, it's gonna get tough. I love that Vex was trying to make a push towards Aurora and rotate in through that way, but Aurora just able to hold their spot. And now we'll have a free walk in with just minimal cover, but we turn our attention to cybercats trying to make their way over on the Skyhook side. Zanya still has a new fresh Kraber maxed up with that Rampage, but the Knuckle Cluster kind of almost backfires on them a little bit. ANC outplayed, GoNext goes down, Zanya goes down, and now they have to keep moving straight into Passion UA and 07. 07, who are now a 3-stack. They were able to get the revive onto Amphi and get him back into the match.
Cybercats definitely a tough spot here, going up against UAIM, able to get a knock on Sanya, but then already trades that, and it's just a back and forth. 07 see the opportunity to push in third party this, hopefully clean up some easy KP. They start doing that. UAIM is out, Cybercats down to 2, and Nags is going in for that final push, cleaning up. Cybercats and 07 now own this area of the zone.
202 go down in the distance as well. The Dark Veil for cover for the reset. Very cleanly done. Redragon still top of tower. Forge still living underneath, and Aurora just walking freely with a lot of space. Space that will soon disappear as the zone pulls away from tower. But they can play the rocks here and essentially have open season on the squads ahead of them.
Here's that push coming in from Aurora. You see Hardeki and Impulse right on these outskirts, trying to see if they can maybe get an angle on Redragon, who definitely has them in their sights. They know Aurora is trying to make their way through. UAIM a little bit farther in on an off angle for the squad, trying to see if maybe there's either a safe way to rotate through or get some damage down on these two teams and kind of force them to start going for a fight here. Bang ult is called in, and that might be the opening that they're looking for.
Ooh, it is! Jay Savage connects on to Fitu, and Redragon will lightly meet their makers here as they fall from the lobby. Forge maintaining a good bit of health. We just need to turn our attention towards Aurora because we have to keep moving, but Aurora are safe on their rock. Forge are the ones that are gonna have to move just a little. But the real question is inside Skyhook. The layer cake buildings are happening, and 07 need to turn this around, and they are doing just that. With so many eliminations for the squad thus far for this game, sitting on 8, and Nasky with a Kraber just waiting to connect.
07 managing to get that roof for free. I don't even know how they made it up there so safely, but they've got themselves a great position. The Kraber trying to make something work here in the hands of Nasky as they're keeping their eyes peeled for those teams that are starting to make a move in. Look at Aurora on this rock right now.
Aurora, Hardeki, the Grim Reaper himself, looking for the ultimate high ground. And they just have so much space. 6 eliminations for this squad. Now, granted, it's a completely different story. You think back to their match day 2, where they had 57 points just from Stormpoint. Well, now they've got to do all of their work here on World's Edge, and Noises from Full English just trying to do whatever they can to keep this push from TSM Phoenix alive. But TSM Phoenix do eliminate Full English, and back to 07. Just 6 more bullets aimed at Aurora.
Ooh. Nasky knows they're there and can't get it to connect, but will be keeping Aurora in his crosshairs. TSM Phoenix doing a good job of at least opening up a little bit of space around them right now before they're forced in. But the first team that's going to have to move is going to be LCDF. It'll be interesting to see what they can do with all of this open space. Aurora obviously knows they're there. The catwall had to go down. They don't have a lot of cover to play with, and Aurora is off the rock onto the roof against 07.
They were forced to push off. They took too much damage in the open on the top. Now, can they hit the regain? All the shield bats come through, and now we're looking at med kits. Fun fact, 1,913 shield bats were used up in the EMEA region until this match day, with Hardeki being the top user of shield bats, and they got to keep on. How they're able to survive here is crazy. Still getting a knock. Bang ult doing work.
We're seeing lots of shield cracks coming through. Players are starting to go down. LCDF looking a little bit low. 07 still managing to hold on to this roof, but if I'm not mistaken, E6 is above them, trying to push them off for control. Some beautiful shots with the Volt coming out of Nasty, trying to do what he can to force E6 away and off of their position right now. E6 does go down, and 07 survive by the skin of their teeth.
My question is, how many nades do 07 have? We've seen this before, and this was their pop-off moment. They have the high ground. Now we need to really focus on this, because how will they approach it? We grab lift up from. Nasty drops down, immediately goes down. Amphi to follow. Nags left standing into the top 3, but it's Aurora who's really cooking, and Made in Heaven, though, able to take out 07 and clean up the remnants of Aurora.
Where did Made in Heaven come from? That was the sneakiest, most patient play. We were watching Aurora fight for their lives. We were watching 07 try to hold down that roof. E6 die. 07 are forced off the roof because the ring is too close. Made in Heaven, I feel like they were silent assassins in the end there.
Hey, Kashera called them out in the halftime show, said they're playing incredibly well and to keep an eye on Made in Heaven, and you can see why. Biding their time, making sure that they play for the win and try to maximize their KP in that end game. It was really tough when you think of being on the high ground. That's usually where you want to be, specifically in an end game. But when that circle starts to collapse and you're forced to essentially jump into the open arms of the squads ahead of you, that can be a little jarring. And I love that 07 kind of broke out the grab lift to try and make that happen or elongate that so they could rain some nades down. It just really didn't work like it did in the prior match day.
Yeah, I mean, still phenomenal performance across the board. Like we had said, 07 possible team to pick up their performance here today. Now that we've switched on over to World's Edge, I feel like they did exactly that. E6 did well with a zone that was favoring them, so they were able to get some good placement points on the board as well as some of that KP. But Made in Heaven, I feel like they have just really stepped up to play, whether we see them getting 1 point in placement points, but then 10 kills on the board, or now we see them finishing really, really strong in the zone. I mean, they had a decent position coming out of Monument, but still made that work in a building that was very chaotic.
Yeah, but you think back to the prior match day with groups A and C, Made in Heaven were second overall on the day, just behind Aurora, and they had 27 eliminations, got 55 points, so 07 was right behind them with 3. Regardless, it was a dominant showing, but they need this, because we have to talk about the fact that we said it earlier, you need to be in the top 8. Match days are dwindling. If you can get yourself inside the top 20, well, you get to play in regional finals and an even bigger chance. But for our match 4 results, Made in Heaven, 17 points for that game. Aurora on 20 and 07, 18. You said point sponge earlier, Glitter, but I'm seeing some more.
Sheesh. I mean, that is a strong performance, especially when you take into consideration that Aurora specifically had to fight through so many other teams to even get to that spot on the rock and try and make it through those final fights in the last ring. I mean, they were scrappy to get there. 07 just understood what needed to be done as far as getting where they wanted to position. They had a really solid move to that rooftop. We didn't see how they did it, but they were here to play. And as we move down the rest of these results, I'm sure we'll probably see the points fall off just a bit here, because like you said, a little bit of a point sponge. We did see it pop off out of 202 with their engagement, but otherwise there just weren't any more points to go around.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. 202, they got 3 alone just from the contest. Same with Cybercats over at Harvester, so that at least gives them a bit of points. Now, you have to start really thinking about the longevity of it. Cybercats came into map number 4 in first place and were only able to grab 4. So I'd imagine once we tune towards those series results, we might see a couple shakeups here.
All right, well, I think we also have stats from our top 3 teams, because they were some massive performances, and I kind of want to see these numbers broken down individually because I mean, we saw great Storm Point games, while World's Edge is kicking off pretty strongly as well, Tiff.
Yeah, Grim Reaper himself, 2k damage, breaking it with ease. 5100 for Aurora. That just goes to show you, as they battled their way in, they did work. And even 07, I honestly thought for a moment there they were going to be able to turn that around and net themselves a victory, but
yeah,
they sure as heck finding 11 eliminations is just as good. I'd be happy with that.
I mean, they have to be. They have to be. It was a fantastic performance across the board. We'll see how it reflects in our overall series results. Now, cybercats, obviously a team that's been at the top after our first 3 matches on Stormpoint, but now that performance puts AURORA only 1 point behind them. And once again, they are just so strong when these 2 groups are facing off against each other.
Yeah, I mean, AURORA jump up from 5th place to 2nd after that map, almost to 1st place. 07 moves from 16th to 9th, still really well. Even Element 6 moves up a couple of places, but it's LCDF that have slipped just 1 towards ANC Outplayed. With only 2 matches to go, Glitter. It's getting close.
I cannot wait to see how the rest of our matches play out. Before we get into match number 5, though, we're going to send it to a short break, give everybody a little bit of an opportunity to reset. And when we return, more World's Edge action, so don't go anywhere. You're watching the ALGS.
Welcome back to the Apex Legends Global Series, match day 5, but only 2 more matches to go for our EMEA region here. I'm SpiderTip back alongside Zephyr, and we're going to be calling all the action for the final 2 matches. Zephyr, I am no longer predicting any more ring pulls, so I'm curious to hear where you think this next match is going to go.
You know what? I don't have the same kind of voodoo you do, but it'd be nice to go down to Thermal Station because I feel like it is a lackluster pull that we have not gotten in a long time. And it feels like 2 years ago, that was all we ever talked about.
I do really love endings at Thermal Station, so we can only hope that they will pull and 2R1C is backing behind you as that is their drop spot. But the history of our day goes to cybercats, GoNext, LCDF, Made in Heaven, all different winners throughout our match series here, but 2 matches to go, and will we get a repeat? Or who will reign supreme now that Cats and AURORA are 1 point apart at the top of the leaderboard?
Some fun statistics off the back end of that last game. I know we talked about the 5k damage from AURORA off of it, but that 5k makes up a half of the total damage that they've done today at 10k.
That's actually crazy. That is crazy. What's even crazier is Mandy's still locking in the Pathfinder, clearly getting ready for Season 20 changes. But for now, we set our sights on our final 2 matches, the Apex Games Museum, the free cam shot, and also I'm a little jealous. We have the Apex Asia Festival at the end of this month. They have pop-ups such as the store with the museum, a lot of heirlooms, and I'm here in the US and jealous. But for Vex, they're in Harvester with cybercats.
I don't think they'll be too jealous of 99 found in their hands. It might not be a physical one, but for Clemmy, it's one that can do some work here. Able to get some nice regrouping on the other side and even start to find those cracks and a knock on to Ranches.
Sure. Turn those tides over there. Zanya and Alonzi kind of backing up to get together. Strength in numbers, power of friendship, as any anime arc would say. Even the Radiant transfer through walls and a grav lift to get back into the fray.
Nice recovery there, and we'll see if the push comes through now following suit with height and play. Pushing off that Radiant transfer, one of the best in terms of 50-50s. And Alonzi and Zanya, well, they've already made for the escape here knowing that was coming off a response.
Checking in with Mind and 202. It's Dolgaran last standing on the conduit as opposed to Bloodhound. And honestly, back to the lobby as 202 wins another bout here at Tree. I think they found out about Tech's eviction notices in NA and is trying to serve some here in EMEA.
They're a lot more aggressive about it. They don't share words. They just arrive. For cybercats, though, I'm curious where they'll be arriving when we talk about Zanya able to find good rotation in the sky. Alonzi, Cat's Claw on the ground. We'll see if he can find some sort of safety. Getting into the valley there is going to be enough. And Vex, yeah, giving that one away. And I was about to say, okay, that is 202 with the revive.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Cats have 9 lives, and so far, we've just lost 1 in the form of Ranches, so we got to get it back.
How many? That would be like 4 revives if you had to really count it out. Maybe even 5, I think.
Good thing it's not 3 strikes here. Good thing.
I would personally love to see that, but I know it won't be happening, at least in the ALGS, but we'll see where these teams now set themselves up for our end game. It's not quite Thermal Station, but it is south. And in fact, this one a little bit of a mixed kind of ending here. I will note that without Big Mod and Stack showing a lot of presence here, this still kind of retains teams having to still focus on keeping control of that western bridge here. You can't lay all of your bets in on the other side of the cliff.
This is going to be tough because do you remember when we had essentially RKN on the desk talking about geyser zones in particular being one of the least favored type of pulls from any team because of the ability to pull back towards Siphon, 2 choke, 2K Swinny on the ground trying to rotate, slab and cracked though. What can you do against Forge, especially when you got the former teammate of Slayers over there?
Swinny down here, but you know he's calling from above. Let's see what they might be able to find. It is still incredibly early for the remnants of this roster to put themselves back together, similarly to what we were seeing out of 202 there, but you're gonna have to make it quick. When we talk about zones like this, right, it does come into kind of being there to deliver, right? You can foot your way into a lot of other circles here with teams showing heavy presence towards the geyser and towards the south. Those chokes can be incredibly punishing to work your way into late.
That's a good calm. Redragon, they land Big Mod. No ring console for them over there, just a survey beacon. So they immediately loot, hit the rotation towards Crafter at Geyser, get the ring console at Geyser, and now see they have to move after the crafting rotation. But for Made in Heaven, who have been having an absolute stellar day, have hit their rotation just on the inside of the tunnel, where they'll get all the audio information that a squad is there.
Really good for them as 07, we've seen them cook things up in Skyhook previously, but this is a fight that they need to remedy here. Nasky already low, able to stick the bat. Amphi playing double duty, checking both sides, and an EMP, which I can only assume is in the hands of 2R1C.
Makes sense. Although we were talking the crypto changes with Kashera earlier, the larger EMP, the auto scans. I'm gonna have some flashcards out before our next match day, trying to memorize every single perk and perk ability, the trees. It's gonna be glorious, let me just tell you.
Yeah, we'll see what kind of cooks up here as we kind of reintroduce Season 20. I'm starting to lean a little bit more towards the zone play again, especially with Watson. That's my early pickup in terms of the meta. We'll see how these teams fare.
Watson meta, 202 cracked. Miscom falling incredibly low, but a perfectly timed conduit tactical from Maraka, and it allows so much success here throughout this fight and being able to keep that uptime, as you would say. We just need one more member A Vex to fall, and just like that, 202 hits the reset, but not before other teams decide to make a presence known.
And just as good as that fight starts there, it wasn't entirely clean. Electrifying Steel from a distance with Blast, able to ream and beam with the Havoc from afar here and take advantage now of a full wealth of 6 boxes of loot before they make the rotation. One, that's not even that far.
Dream and Beam. It is the season of the energy weapons, the Havoc, the most used AR in terms for eliminations, not playtime. I know, it's a little crazy. Flatline gets more, but more eliminations go the way of the Havoc. But for ESG, good job on fending off 2R1C and forcing them to go back through the choke and rotate towards Siphon. I'm curious to see what the rotation for ESG will look like. Light does have an evac tower. Curious to see how that goes for them.
Something to note about that rotation is it does reveal we've got 2 cryptos in the lobby. 2R1C being in the presence, coming out of a slower rotate out of Thermal, leads me to believe that it's likely TSM Phoenix who are potentially hosting that pickup on the other side of what we saw from 07 earlier on. So potentially watch out for that double EMPs later. As we take a look at the zone, it is going to centralize deep on that bridge. I really like the position of teams like the Full English, Made in Heaven, and ANC who are posturing for what will be that Eastern rotation back into zone as things tighten up.
It is going to be interesting. Redragon do make their way out of Geyser after crafting, returning home to Big Mod. 2R1C still on that rotation towards Lava Siphon and pick up the remnants of Zanya as cybercats fall, which is going to open the door for the rest of the squads, such as AURORA trying to get to the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, really solid there. Unable to put themselves back together, instead find themselves in pieces. A puzzle that will only remain in Game 6 here. For 2R1C, this is probably one of the slowest rotations we've ever seen from them, even in games where they do have to extend the extra mile in terms of POIs. Something about Thermal has delayed them here. Now, granted, on the opposite side of Lava Siphon is still very much playable, but competing for one of those edge buildings outwards towards the east can be difficult once already claimed.
Scan does not connect for anyone, and they make their way through tunnel towards Geyser as we get a rogue 40% worse, kind of just onto the outsides, closer towards Overlook at this point. But as we get a little sky cam here of Lava Siphon, 07, their home, and Passion at the nearby distance, hitting the evac tower for the late game rotation, very similar to what we had witnessed in match number 4 as they found a nice position in Skyhook. But the building they have outlined, I am just not a fan of playing it 0-0 though. Times it perfectly, hits the Geyser, and just keeps on moving because it's gonna save them. Because Blast is like, I've got a 30-30, I've got the mid-range distance, and if you don't keep going, I will take you down.
The timing is literally perfect there, but it doesn't leave much of an answer for further moves. It's survivability in the heat of needing a space to play. For Passion, they still have yet to find themselves a heavy answer deeper into the zone where they actually need to be there.
TSM Phoenix playing the house, which makes sense for them, as you'll typically see a Watson team set up there. And for Made in Heaven, the fence is kind of outlining the choke between Geyser and Big Mod. A lot of space being held by Redragon, and you're essentially sending Kazakh and Fitu up to 2v3. But Made in Heaven is not full HP. Arctic needs 5 seconds to get that shield bat off, but Tax allows that to go through with just a couple of clean shots, doing enough damage, getting the shield crack onto Kazakh and forcing them back to Big Mod.
It's great cover here, but it still doesn't answer the question of what lays out from behind. Geyser still in full presence is an issue that Made in Heaven will have to deal with alongside of anything they incur from Big Mod. And while I know they can take the fights at Big Mod, they've shown their prowess today. Being pinched in any situation will never come up on top. That's why they're extending this rotation from Arctic and Senek. They want to make sure that if they leave this place and this real estate, that they're doing it as a solo roster.
Just playing in this choke is allowing them to throw down pressure to every squad in the distance and overlooking Geyser. But as that oh my god.
Yep, there it is. Full English, you've got to play out from the east here. That height off a bridge is nasty.
You know, I am not surprised with any of our zone pulls at this point in time, and AURORA able to try and hold this zone by just barely being in it. They can choose which choke they want to go through, and ESG have positioned themselves in the death house. I have just claimed this building as not a solid position, because anytime you rotate out of this, you typically get caught out.
Well, for ESG, they survive for now, and you're right. Getting up to the height that sets itself ahead is a challenge for them. Surprisingly, though, you don't see this often. Contests in Siphon itself in the midst of pre-rotation here. LCDF do a great job defending against that, and Izdan will be able to sustain batteries back here for potentially full swings.
No Digi on the R9 for Psycop here. That's going to be unfortunate because you just need it. And you don't want to just essentially shoot blindly. No Digi for Zidane either, but a grab lift to block and isolate the door, making sure they cannot push in to our 1C. They do sustain a little bit of shield damage, but so far, still relatively healthy. And it gives LCDF the opportunity to completely reposition themselves and focus on the task at hand and the rotate into next zone.
It doesn't change, though, the blockade that is 2R1C. The slide down from height comes just as quickly, and for LCDF, they need a different answer to the move ahead. Building across still well within play here, and 2R1C might be capitalizing on what they needed to do most. For ESG, I mean, they're making the most of death building.
I mean, death at their hands as Passion UA rotates in, and Hardeki themselves even able to grab some of those eliminations from a distance, trying to take space on the outside. Now, that is a building that we typically see AURORA rotate through, but ESG, they got here first.
Good moves early, and now from behind, looking to clean things up. They're going to be one of these Soul Ring Southern squads. I worry, though, we've brought this up multiple times, that height over on edge. They have no answer to it yet here, and we know for teams like AURORA, who laid down those shots earlier, they're just itching for their moment to capitalize.
I also really love where Forge has positioned themselves kind of on the top buildings, just on the outskirts of Lava Siphon through the cluster. But for Made in Heaven, they've made waves thus far in map number 5. Let's jump into a listen in and see how they're going to tackle this.
No, they're not playing close. They're not playing close.
Yeah. The bridge, come back a bit. Please don't play that far.
I'm looking.
What do you say with me?
You guys are just playing inside. We have so much space now.
Yes, sir.
Picking hand. Crypto Valk team, bro.
Drop.
Out of 10.
On the back. One dropped in front of us.
Yeah, chill.
60 on one. One's left.
50 on one. We need to chill the fuck out.
It's bad.
Nades.
They're netting me. I'm chilling.
They're trying to force.
I need to wait for fucking fuse ulti.
Up.
Peeking.
Horizon one! Banger.
Nice. All you are taking a up.
Finish on.
No, I got shot in the back, man.
We need to go.
Yeah, weapon up.
Valk right here.
AP, get it down.
How about that here?
Swing.
On track.
I got it off.
The shield.
Just 8 left.
Yeah, you have to. You got that grenades, otherwise.
No, man.
I knocked the fuse.
No.
Behind you, no.
See, bro.
You need...
From across the map.
And all they could do, the swings come through, but it's not enough as TSM Phoenix made their presence known, and they continue pushing forward straight into GoNext, already down. Meanwhile, 07 has fallen.
A big break on the crypto opposite sides here as they're going to be forced to back up towards tree, even through the wall. Kachi's able to find breaks of damage. See some now low and slow on the heels here. Might be able to get back on up and gatekeep before the closing zone. On the other sides here, 2R1C have played to the height of their advantage. Forge just below them here. Doesn't answer for that cross onto the east, but still great position if they can clean things up.
Curious to see if 2R1C just full sends onto Forge, but we'll have to tune back in. For now, GoNext have stabilized here, fended off TSM Phoenix just a little bit. And AURORA in an all-out bout Full English on the other side of it. And Bryn last standing. Maybe a collective 20 HP is not going to be enough against 9 Impulse themselves. The space is theirs, but not before ESG makes their presence known and completely mirrors that. And now Aurora, which is a shred of space, will have to fight back.
Meanwhile, for TSM, still looking for a re-entry into this fight. GoNext now taking even more position up here, trying to play off the backside of the Watson fences. TSM will try and climb. Kashi, Maxi low here, unable to actually sustain responses, wrapped with 1.
Horizon so vital with the grav lift to get back to a safer position, but that doesn't stop the push. And the Knuckle Cluster does do enough for TSM Phoenix to go back to the low ground, biding just a little bit of time for GoNext to try and heal up, but Bambino does fall. And for now, you have to start to think. The ring at the back, we have to move forward. This could be the last we see of GoNext, and it is.
A solid choke out there from TSM, but ultimately with the zone closed right alongside it, there's not much cover to at least hold on to. Forge, ANC willing to take complete advantage with even ANC. They've got to make bigger moves as Aurora. They're going for the drop on them.
And Forge just moves straight into TSM Phoenix. They take what they want, they get the space, and they wrap that rotation around the mountain. But for the other 3 squads, the collapse is here, and Aurora takes out. ANC outplayed, 9 eliminations, and sets their sights northern for more. Yeah, we've got a conduit ult ahead of us, but we don't care. We're gonna shoot through the 1 remaining energy barrier, and just like that, the conduit ult is gone. We gotta hit the ult excels to rev up for the end game.
This is incredibly tough for Aurora here, stuck right in front of Fudge. The only thing that saves them is ESG with their pressure. A wall, though, allows them to finally come back from their cubbyhole to make some moves here. Love this extension from the Forge. This is going to potentially give them the game they need. If Aurora and ESG don't move any further out, it will be a drop from ESG right on top of Aurora, and we know for a fact it's unlikely they come out of that completely healthy.
Forge came into this map in 9th place, and now they're sitting on double-digit eliminations. ESG, they have the high ground. Skullpiercer on the 30-30. Just need to start popping some heads there in the distance. And Aurora just trying to stay tucked into the crevices on the mountainside, out of ESG's line of sight. Lufka gets punished for extending out and peeking a little too far over. And Forge, they don't have to move as quickly as some of the others, and they can just kind of bide their time, chaining those Bangalore smokes together. Jay Savage does have the Rolling Thunder available for endgame too.
I like the extension out here over towards the side from Jay Savage, taking these off angles. It makes it so that if Aurora go for a full push, it's not the entire roster, and that opposite angle will allow them to thrive. ESG here, even though they are pushed out from height, they are going to be able to hold on to it till the very end of this play. So it's going to come down to how aggressive Aurora gets with a grab lift in play, with a full send to height, and Hardeki down, though. They've seemed to make their choice.
Poitrain last standing drops down, but the 3-man stack comes through. And now Forge meet the mark. They come to the top, and they just try to whittle away. I'd love to jump into Illicit, and we can hear the comms for the end of game.
It's a duo.
We have to drop. Wait, look at the guy. Under us. The conduit.
Jump on him, jump on him, jump on him.
Okay, dropping now, dropping now. Conduit, focus, conduit.
Conduit dead.
Bang flare, bang right side.
Back down. That's guy right side.
Bang one, bang one.
You're full, he's on the left side, push him. One blue on the side. I need to reload. Yes, I'm left side. He's still here. Let's go. I told you one big game. Bro.
One big game. I told you so. You hear the comms. The boys are happy, and they are your winners of map number 5. I have to think, knowing that we saw them on double-digit eliminations just moments prior as they were setting up their space, we can only imagine what they were able to do there, Zephyr. Kind of
That is an insane turnaround from the Forge there. And we talked about the difficulties of getting into that position. One that was held dominantly by many other squads on height for a long time. AURORA, ESG, both having their time to shine there. But that's eventually what came back to bite them both. The greatest, the best position that neither team wanted to give up allowed Forge to find their way in from the edge and play in at the right moment.
I mean, Forge just did incredibly well. You're right. You just have to be patient, play for the win. They know they can just third party that situation and essentially walk up, because any move that AURORA made, ESG was just breathing down their necks, just consistently over the ledge. Now, granted, we did see a couple of overextensions trying to peek over, which were immediately punished by not only AURORA, but also Forge across the way. But it was their game to be said. We saw them setting up shop in that mid game for that end, and they did it well. Now, 2R1C, though, that could have been a little bit different if you think back to the mid game. Had they been able to get that positioning, it could have been theirs.
Still, though, it's kind of that early presence from ESG and AURORA that we have to give credit to in its own weird way, because in the end, they do dictate a lot of the pace of that game up until the final 3-team split. In that moment, we saw them picking up KP galore from what was our death house to the height held by AURORA that allowed them to probably stay a lot more consistent coming out of the points of this game than what we expect.
Now I have to think about it this way. With Cats falling down early and AURORA making it towards that end game, this has to open the door for a lot of teams here to make a play, because I don't think this series we don't have someone running away with triple digits at this point. We're just still in that 50 to 40 area because so many teams have point sponged as much as possible that it truly is, we think one more map to go after this, anyone's series.
If AURORA continues to show up today like they have on World's Edge, this will be potentially their second series coming out of this. We're getting a lot of repeat offenders when it comes to winning on the day of first E6. Now potentially them.
I mean, let's go back. Let's think about it, right? Match day number 2. All right, AURORA win, 77 points. They're already kind of approaching that threshold to get them the coveted 25 points overall on the day. Made in Heaven, they got second with 55 points. So we're getting a little bit closer on that. Let's pull up the match results and we'll let you know how map number 5 went. 26 points for Forge. Okay, one big game, Zephyr, one big one.
One mega game here that will surely push them potentially to the top now after their performance. But the same can even be said, though, for ESG and AURORA. You saw how dirty they got into the action, whether it was from below or above. 8 KP and 11 respectively put them only so far behind the winners of the game.
I mean, ANC Outplayed, we saw them get stuck between those rocks, and even with really powerful like swings and putting down a lot of damage, it just wasn't enough. They still got kind of congested up in there, along with TSM Phoenix and GoNext. Full English grabbing. Let's go ahead and jump onto the other side of the page to see what happened for some of our squads. 07 really never made it out of that lava siphon area. They were still able to grab 3 eliminations for a total of 4. Not too bad, but 202 really manifesting those eliminations over there at Tree. They take another 3 just from the contest alone and pick up another 3 for a total of 6. So if you're going out in 18th place with 6 points, it's still good.
Yeah, there's many ways to accumulate the scoreline for 202. They've surely found it there. But for teams like cybercats, this is a blemish on their roster that could potentially come back to bite them as we enter into Game 6. We'll take a look at the Forge v ESG here in the end, and you'll notice the Forge from their edge position not having that height, not having that control of the ley land, doesn't match up in terms of damage, but the decision making and how they capitalize on both of those teams at the end allow them to balloon their KP.
Pretty crazy team comparison here, and also the cutest logo for Forge, the angriest little penguin there, as we jump over to Hardeki's series stats from today. Just absolutely dominating performance, almost 6k damage. We know at least 2,000 of it from one game, 13 eliminations, 9 assists. Standout performance as we jump on over to the series results, Zephyr.
We'll tell you what, if Forge aren't at the top, it's gotta be close there. Only a game behind, but surprisingly tied with ESG.
That's actually really impressive considering they were 18th overall on the day. the last 2 times we saw these groups meet up. So they have, lo and behold, improved exponentially. For 07, though, they were 3rd, so we're looking for a killer last game for them, because if they go north of 20 points, it'll allow them to go up maybe 5 or so positions. But you're right, you called it earlier. AURORA wants that repeat win.
And it can be contested here. Both the Forge, ESG, and even cybercats, in the most amazing of ways, have the chances. But that in itself comes from AURORA and their own weakness.
Ooh, but with only 1 game to go for the A and C matchup here in the EMEA region, we're going to cut to a quick break. So go treat yourself to some water and then return right back to us, because we've got a series to end. The time is now, with 1 more map on World's Edge, determine our Match 5 EMEA victor, Zephyr. I gotta hear it. We're hearing the projections here. AURORA wants to go back-to-back. Can they do it?
I'll tell you what, if their performance on World's Edge mirrors anything like what we saw out of them on Stormpoint in Day 2, it's the perfect opportunity for them, I won't say to turn the tables, but to deliver where expected.
I really like that. That was smooth. But for teams like Made in Heaven, you know, a lot of people just really turning up the game here. We were asking, we talked about the playoffs and all the points that we need to accrue throughout the regular season to get to Split 1 playoffs. And honestly, Zephyr, I'm starting to think, where is Split 1 playoffs? Do we know? Do you know?
I would love to tell you, but legally I cannot.
I don't know.
I'm lying.
I thought I could sneak one past you there. None of us know. None of us know. But regardless, what we do know is 1 more map on World's Edge. And we just have to go back to the contest for Harvester and our match series here. Forge, all different winners going through. But between cybercats and Forge, they've got the cutest logos.
All right. I personally, I lean more towards cybercats, even though I don't it's like, it reminds me, roll with me, it reminds me of a whale a little bit.
I like it, but our players, they're in the drop ship, a nearly vertical plane line from south to north. The question is, where are we headed? For now, we're gonna take our eyes towards tree. Mine drop in the middle, Sanka able to grab 1, but no weapon. And now Yolu gets all the damage. Dolgaran grabs an L-Star Spitfire LMG combo. Not enough to save Sanka or Yolu. This is going to be tough. Immediately, 202. No, they have the numbers advantage, and they're going to full send.
With that early Radiant transfer and damage galore here for Mine, it looks like they're potentially done and dusted already. But hey, Yuchako has made an appearance in the remnants of the 2R1C roster. seem to be getting involved. Something to notice, the fact that 202 is more than healthy after this early exchange, so it's not going to be as clean as they want it.
It's respectable because 2R1C, they do land thermal. Maybe they drop a little bit segmented and try to do some damage. Essentially what we saw from LCDF with Made in Heaven and Redragon on Wall and Stormpoint, that's what they're going for here. But for Harvester, we got all the cybercats together. And they know what they have to do in this final map.
I like this from cybercats. No longer on top of the 50-50. They face their difficulties, and while Vex doesn't get a ton of respect in the overall scoreline, I still continue to give them credit where it's due when it comes to their fighting prowess. When this roster was from nowhere back in last split, they excelled on the lifeline destructive comps that allowed them to get in the face of rosters, deliver, and then get those reses alongside it here. So off a contest like this, cybercats kind of understand they've got to drop their presence, play for the potential win, and not lose out on the day that they've worked so hard to achieve.
I need shields. It's definitely not wrong. And as we get a look at where the zone will be pulling, it does intersect over at Trials, which means the likelihood of that zone bouncing over towards the western side of Skyhook and Trials to be known. For our squads, though, making their way on for the early rotations. Passion UA immediately wanting to get out here on this side underneath the Raven. You're already getting the inklings of where these squads have positioned themselves. LCDF through Trials. Element 6 on that eastern side of Skyhook. And here comes more Passion.
Slightly less Passion. 2/3 of Passion, some would say. And for EQ and 0-0, they've got to channel their extra energy to make up for that 1/6 between the two of them to complete our fractions. Doing math on the broadcast.
I actually love that for you. That's it's really interesting. I try hard not to do math on the broadcast because lo and behold, it's just not the way that I should be doing things. I was always good at reading, not math.
Well, I mean, there's benefits to that. You sound incredible, and that comes solely from reading.
I did just finish Crescent City, so I've started my journey there. You're welcome, SJM fans. I'm getting to House of Flame and Shadows one day or another, and well, Made in Heaven, they're getting towards E6. They want to make themselves hit that rotation to Skyhook, and K Swinney and co are ready to see it happen. But at least it doesn't break out into an all-out brawl. They're just kind of segueing throughout the buildings as they decide where they essentially want to end up and play from.
Sitting on gold with evac. Now drop down here. Might be just the rotation that they're looking to play from, as once again we reintroduced a lot of northern control, and with that comes a lot of teams. In most scenarios that when we come through to Skyhook, you see what is usually deep investment in most of these buildings, but with a peek at that zone, it is something that does look to be more of a split outside of this POI. I look back up towards that hillside outside of Countdown, where typically it's a little bit harder to play early.
Do you think that's where we're going to end? Do you think it's going to end on that hillside by Countdown? Or you think we're going to pull a little bit closer to Trials?
I'd be interested, because with that zone kind of catering a little bit more towards the southern angle, that's why I'm led to believe at least we go back out towards the open.
Even less Passion here as 2R1C cleans up some more. Vex, though, hearing the shots, look for any opportunity that they can to get involved, or even if it's just a quick armor check, maybe a knock from distance with the 30-30. Micey, though, getting up to height and immediately answering back.
Nades from above here, laying nukes upon the ground, set upon a minefield that will at least delay 2R1C, give Vex the opportunity to extend the rotation, even as damaged as they are here. So in the valley, they'll find themselves potentially some height to give them further rotation, but taking their time leaves me a bit worried, not just for that, but also for apparently Passion potentially coming right on back.
Always more Passion. Maximize that Passion. 2R1C, though, like shooting fish in a bucket as Passion is eliminated. And here we go. You throw the black hole, you couple it with some thermites, and it equals a down.
That's it for Clemmy for now. Great grab lift to defend a bit of that Rolling Thunder's presence for 2R1C. Not a team that I tend to say gets aggressive or at least delivers in fights, but when you're at that much of an advantage, Why would you choose otherwise? For Vex, surprisingly, they finally make the rotation they should have pulled from early on here, as Vacuum Babylon are finally up towards the other side of the Mirage Etoile's exit.
Oh man, all of our teams and Skyhook. Be curious to see where this goes through. 07 though, making their way through Landslide. They've got a Crafter, the Ring console, so they have that next zone information. But Nasky at the top here, bow check in hand. Little Legolas action. Hunting, Amphi would say, just checking all of the angles. Are there any rats that we've seen throughout our match days? Don't want them to appear in Landslide.
Not quite rats, but cats.
Close enough.
Taking their time out from the corners. A bit of the stray cat strut here, as they'll at least delay for now. Not forced to make any major movements for Aurora. Currently in first and currently looking for more points to balloon that score line. They'll set upon in the Grandma's house, looking to play that hard edge we know them for.
You know, there's always nice to go to Grandma's house. They have muffins sometimes. And for Aurora, they get information, a nice place to evac from. I'm curious to see how this pans out for them. So let's see as they inch their way towards the top, grab that distance over the mountain and start calling out. I like this play for them, especially with Oirain on the Bloodhound. We'll be able to use this survey beacon, the insta scan, to outline, hey, where are those nearby squads? And 9 impulse falling a little bit low, but still able to not go down. But here comes the push. Hardeki does enough damage to keep the squad alive, but we've got to reunite with Impulse.
I mean, that's more than enough damage. That is all that they need there. And a good move back from the black hole to give them their presence on the second floor to at least get full recovery onto Impulse. ANC, though, no slouches to their performance in their own way. Just finishing, topping off things here. Now, granted, likely to see a bit of a stacked cake situation here, as Aurora will be at least, I think, sharing this place for the remnants of our game. Granted, with further rotations likely out there towards the west, it's not going to be something they do for long.
Enemy over there. Yeah, this is interesting. Outplayed immediately move in and take another rooftop. Very aggressive, but with the way that they've been playing today, it makes sense for them, and I'm really enjoying it. You think back to the prior interviews where we've heard them talk. Andy Jax, who plays Watson, is just one of those cracked controller players that we can dub, but just even being quick on the aggression with Watson and thinking ahead towards season 20, you even said it, like, if you're already good at Watson, with some of the perk systems that are yet to come, if you haven't seen that perk tree for Watson, Pylon spawns arc stars.
Yeah, we're not going to get too deep into it, but I do think that's definitely...
I want to, though.
I know. And guess what?
I know.
We get
There's
to be
a time and place for it.
We get to be part of the ALGS, where we will cook just as much alongside them until we burn.
I don't want to burn. I just want to cook, all right? But cybercats, they've made their way into Landslide. They're essentially mirroring 07 throughout their journey. And this time, they can craft. But for 202... just out here disengaging from the situation. It's respectable. They'll find a way.
Syringe here.
I mean, it's going to be a way that comes at the cost of a lot of health here. I mean, Crafter in play. I mean, they might be able to find themselves a bit of additional sustain there. Double medis on 8 syringes from the 2 that we see. Granted, delaying a rotation into a zone like this can be, I mean, a bit difficult. The full English, though, they're right into the thick of things. Head held high, countdown with damage down and a peak below. Chasing this one out.
And chase they do. The grab lift for the team to keep on moving. Vex inch themselves closer towards the underside of the Raven, but they take so much damage. Now Noise is connecting a few shots here. 2 are cracked. They get there a little more quickly. But for now, Full English is happy with the position that they have essentially secured for themselves. And Sir Del on the Watson will likely be able to fence this baby up as we get to see where that pool goes. Interesting.
Bit of a half and half split here between the 2 POIs, neither directly towards Trials or to the open area. Instill going to allow both of these, we'll say, decision makers to, I guess, play this one out for now. ESG, 3 on the day, 51 points after some immaculate performances in our last game. Need to close the distance. A wall, double utilized, parallel lines. Some would say intersecting if they were longer.
You're such a nerd. I love it. It's fine. Look at you go. Now Redragon over here, 11 points on the day, 18th place. But still trying to find a way to get towards the end game when it comes to the Pro League split. Scrims are an entirely different story that you can learn a lot in, but for now they're still alive. In 202, that journey is once bringing them back to Landslide, albeit just a different way. They're gonna have their work cut out for them, as well as Redragon and 2R1C, who have one of the longest rotations over here from Lava Fissure. And as we get that zone kind of pulling back, it also doesn't intersect over Trials. And I think it's going to bounce back essentially where a lot of those teams set up early. Made in Heaven, GoNext, those buildings on the further west side of Skyhook. Yeah.
Just alongside, leaving that little bit of the hillside ramp available outside of Countdown as well, where we see teams like potentially 202 looking to foot their way in and play from. They've got a battle ahead here if they want to be that roster. Arcs, Knuckle Clusters, down and drop. They're going to see if they can defend the edge here. They've got just a silo or two to keep them healthy.
If you said Knuckle Clusters, then I have to think cybercats is nearby as VexX have fallen. And yes, cybercats in Countdown, really going to be able to hold that. Now with 202 and ESG thinking they have to rotate through that area, 202 is about to become the meat in this sandwich.
ASG, no big damage down, but a great coverage from Light there. Nemesis in hand to eliminate Black Hole, but it still is allowed to be found with Arc Stars from Ozzy Owl here. A great leader in hand now with potentially full wipes as well. You can continue to hear the absolutely absurd cybercats presence there. I do want to point out that zone, but Tiff, I'll let you take that one.
Well, it's gone now in 2R1C here. Really starting to get in the mix here on the other side of cybercats. ESG, a duo. They do have the banner. However, trying to get that res off in the depths of Skyhook will likely not come through. Baiting out the evac tower to see if it gets any inkling of information as we turn our attention deep into Countdown. Last standing here for ESG and the incoming mortar flare. Just really add a nice bow to the present of KP for the cybercats.
Now they'll pick up one more here with Ozzy Owl stuck between the bombardment's flames, and while he won't burn, being blown to pieces is just as bad for the cybercats. They continue to keep themselves high on those standings, but they yet to close the gap as we have to discuss what will be a Trials exterior finish. The full English, this position no longer one of presence, and 2R1C happy to pick them up along the way, but Micey caught from behind.
The full English need to eliminate 2R1C from this positioning because with the way Zone has pulled 50% of the top of Trials, the mountains above them, and cybercats immediately start pressuring the full English for that position.
This is good, but recoveries have come through for the full English, trying to see if they can posture out a little bit further towards the east here. Both of these teams, though, need to find themselves some happy cover. If this doesn't come through absolutely perfect, those houses out from the west have extension angles to potentially, well, drop someone whether you like it or not.
There even is a ring console still available in Skyhook, but I don't think it's worth losing your life over. You'd have to expend so many utilities just to even get it. But for now, cybercats turning the non-turbocharged Havoc, even without a mag, still finding a chunk of damage, and Ranches falls before the Radiant transfer comes through. Zanya and Alonzi dancing alongside the ring, trying to do what they can, but the full English, relatively healthy, should be able to clean this up, and they do.
And I mean, it really is pressure from afar. I mean, that's what truly does them in the end here. But we got to shift our attention to some teams that maybe are a little bit more relevant to the presence of our end circles here. AURORA, Made in Heaven, and most importantly, UA above it all. That zone in the heart of the Trials hillside here. They will have first take to playing on that height.
Oh my gosh, Zephyr, this zone This zone is... We're about to see a mass exodus from Skyhook. We're going to lose 75% of our teams immediately within the next 35 seconds.
I mean, none of these buildings available in the majority of the zone, essentially unplayable in most of its presence here. So this fight, this exit from these 3 buildings will be the lion's share of where we see at least the damage. AURORA, that's a squad that is defending on that fence line. That's going to be very important here for this end game in just a little bit when we talk about where you can play from. If AURORA are able to defend this, which is going to be really hard, by the way, that's going to be a great position as we turn into what will likely only be 3 squads remaining.
We see a Valgold coming out from TSM Phoenix, so keep eyes on where they're about to land. Nasky just open season with the bow check straight towards 40% worse, and they're gone.
Man, I'd hire that man. Find his way out in the countryside and drop a deer or 2 here with the bow in hand, with the wall down now, and he'll continue pushing. Spikes from behind and grab lifts above. It gives them but seconds to work with, as now Maidenhead and GoNext are forced to come out 9 of player among.
Forge done and dusted. Amphi trying to hold on alongside Nags, who falls. Maidenhead eliminated. 9 Impulse was able to get a res onto Hardeki after being basically imploded, because you have Phoenix or TSM Phoenix up top, UAIM up top. They're going to be able to just stay in for mere remnants of space, and Full English begin the climb.
They got to make sure behind is looking just as good as AURORA. To no surprise, can't hold out onto the fence line for English. They want to capitalize where they see damage done. We're into the top 3 squads remaining on the zone closed here. Full English biding their time out from the edge has allowed them to posture for placement, but it still doesn't answer the height that they need. And from all of that, from above, 07 able to survive as a single remaining member.
You've got to do what you can. The final 3, and Passion UA coming into this outside the top 15, needing a massive day, but even more so the Full English. So tough for them hitting those contests onto Stormpoint. Are we about to see something quite interesting here? We're gonna bait that for presence. We don't have banners in the hand of Amphi. I think he just wants to see, will you make a move based off this?
The Full English get themselves topped up one last time before they've got to rev those engines and take off down the track here. But with no answer to climb height, just a grab, lip, and play, I can't imagine UA won't take advantage of that explicit moment.
And all of their attention goes straight towards the reigning member of 07, allowing Passion UA an angle onto Full English. All of the nades that they've been stacking throughout the game have been rained down upon. You have to get rid of the pylon, and they do that. Max Strafe opens the door, goes down immediately. Sonya and Artie now to double down and try to clean up what Max started. And a dance between the 2 knockdowns will be final, and Passion UA, your winners of Map 6.
Coming through under a new name, but with just as much success when they need it most here. A zone that left us, well, in a bit of a tussle. From above, they're able to pick it all up here. The biggest thing I'm most curious about is from that Trials position, how much were they truly impacting, especially that 5th to 6th zone close?
That is really tough, because if you are going to get the high ground early on, you just have to focus on the 30-30 utilization and trying to get as many KPs, try to get involved, but that's a really good question. How many were you able to gather throughout that mid game and into the end game? At least they were able to get some from Full English, and hopefully maybe from AURORA, Phoenix. I keep wanting to call them Phoenix Legacy. That one's going to take me a second. I wasn't used to having TSM and EMEA, okay? I wasn't used to it.
Hey, well, they make their way through just as well. They're into the top 4 and in the end survive. And for 07, that's the biggest one for me, at least, especially coming through with maybe not the most KP or the most explosive performance. Top 3 coming into your last and 6th game will keep you more than competitive into our top 10 overall, which is ultimately what they're aiming for, as we once again will start discussing this towards the end of the show, those playoff positions that are beginning to become much more coveted.
That's true, because we're almost done with the second iteration of the round robin, which means only one more to go. And then if you're in the top 20, you get the regional finals. But let's go ahead and look at our match 6 results. Passion UA, 19 points, just enough to salvage as many of those coveted points we were talking about. But even so, Full English, 17 points, pretty impressive.
It is a return that is welcomed, especially after their contest struggles on Storm Point here. 17 being a number that will support them to the end. As we look down the list, a little bit more, though, of a sustained point line. TSM, Phoenix, GoNext, AURORA, all in similar standings here. But something that I will note is AURORA kind of exemplifying themselves as one of the top squads here, again, with some of our early competitors, as we'll scroll down, falling a bit early.
Yeah, I really loved their position on that fence line, but you called it. You knew it was going to be so difficult for them to play. But for our teams that did not make it into the top 10 on our final game of the day, Element 6 only able to grab 1 from that. Even cybercats, after kind of a split contest where they just kind of wave the white flag and go away, picking up 4 points total, 202. I mean, they're farming out at Tree. They really are. We'll get it working for World's Edge for them to be able to hit that macro. But for 6 points overall, I'm still impressed, and I'm curious to hear what Glitter, our lovely host on the day, has to say.
Honestly, this is a great day.
I like it.
We got variety out of our winners. We saw teams that needed to step up, figuring out not only how to do that from match to match, but we've watched some teams also repeat some of their standout performances from the last time these two groups went up against each other. So I feel like this is going to start to level some of these standings here in EMEA, and we'll continue talking about a lot of this, but we'll start by looking back at these final circles. Obviously, going back to the first match on World's Edge, the one that we got to go through together here, Tiff, and you called the zone. It goes up to Skyhook, and we saw the most insane final moments here, whether it was AURORA trying to play that rock, 07 here trying to fend for their lives on this rooftop against E6. I mean, it was just such a stellar way to kick things off on World's Edge.
And they really do, and getting those shield swaps, trying to get back to full form, but with mere 5 to 10 seconds of time to do that in. It takes 8 seconds alone just to pop a med kit, which Nasky and Amphi are both doing before they have to set their sights on. So now here comes the grab lift we see through. Nasky just solo drops, says, I'm gonna do what I can do, GG GoNext. And it's just a tough situation because the time was just not of their essence.
I mean, honestly, they did the best with what they could in that situation, trying to recover as quickly as possible after fighting off E6 and dropping down, but it was Made in Heaven who was just lying in wait to close out this match, and they did it pretty conservatively, but very, very cleanly. And then heading into match number 5, Zephyr, this might be one of my favorite quotes that we got to hear on the day, because in the end, Forge popped off, and we heard them say, just needed one big game.
And that's it. You never say GG until it's over, especially when it comes down to our 6 matches. Taking their time, waiting from the corners, and taking advantage of how badly AURORA and ESG wanted to play this height, and from these positions out east, allowed them to come out on top. As a result, when it came down to these final moments, it was one quick drop, a small 3v3 exchange after all of those cooldowns had been completely blown out to give Forge that win.
Love seeing these teams start to pick it up, especially after the aggression that we had seen beginning out of Forge in the first map on World's Edge. And then, of course, to close out the day, heading into match number 6. I feel like the teams were listening when it came to our teams to watch, because we watched the full English really pick it up after they didn't have to worry about a contest anymore when we moved on to World's Edge in general. But it was you, AIM, Tiff. You talked about them at the top of the show that wanted to close this whole thing out.
They really did, and one of the things that Max Strafe was talking about ahead of this match day was they really wanted to improve on World's Edge, fix their macro, get their zone calling on check, and they did just that. Now if you couple it with as many eliminations as you can, just the poise of the position here, Max Strafe, the IGL for this squad, just completely opens this engagement enough for them to allow Sanya and Artico to kind of just clean up the remnants, even through the dance of the knockdown shields, and it's always good when you end the day on with a win.
Yeah, fantastic performance across the board. But now as we take a look at the series results, which teams stand out? AURORA end up with a massive point gap here in first place above everybody else ever. I mean, they just turned it on after match number 3.
To say I'm surprised would just be a lie. This is a team that has shown that they can do this. And for their first reappearance in our second round robin, AURORA deliver where, as I said to Tiff, is expected. It might not have been the storm point that we came to know them at least acceptable with, but a much more robust and sustained point scoring. Great placement, great kills all throughout all 6 games.
You know, another team that I'm looking at here, Tiff, and I want to get your thoughts on them because I'm looking at the second side of this page, is still Element 6. They slayed out 21 kills, even 202, like you mentioned them at the end of the last match. 20 kills on the day, but struggling to find some of those placement points.
Yeah, this one's been really tough, especially with LCDF. Now, granted, if you think back to match day 2, the contest for Skyhook West in Trials was going down between Element 6 and LCDF. Now they've essentially split it. LCDF get Trials and Skyhook West, where Element 6 are forced to play from Skyhook East. So that whole thing has just been changing that up. And honestly, both teams are suffering. Granted, Element 6, they were 13th on this prior match day for this showing. Now they've moved up a little bit. Same with 202, they went up a couple, but the biggest improvement overall, in my opinion, Glitter, has been Forge. They were 18th on that prior match day when we saw A and C. Now they're second. Improvements work.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see if we can get a chance to kind of pick their brains on what went right here today for Forge, because we were not having an opportunity to really talk about them in the first 3 matches. I mean, I think they picked it up in match number 3, if I'm not mistaken, with a 4th place finish to close out Stormpoint, but definitely a little bit quieter. And then World's Edge is really where they looked like they were being super strong with their performance. We'll take a look at our overall season standings so far to see where that now sits them after these groups have battled it out. AURORA is still at the top with 71 points, and what's even crazier is that they've only played 3 series. They're above 3 other teams who have played 4 Zephyr.
It is absolutely absurd to state how good AURORA are this season. I said it coming out of day 2 that they were the best team in EMEA, and they continue to prove me right. They are on track to currently sit at 80 or above, potentially 90 if they have a repeat of their similar 21-point standings as we go into the end of our round robin after our break.
And Tiff, this was something that you had talked about at the top of show 2 when we had looked at the standings before the games even started, talking about that cutoff, that bubble. AURORA is practically already there.
Yeah, I would lock them in. Barring any major issues, I'm locking them in because, like you mentioned, yeah, 83 points for, I believe, Split 1 and 84 for Split 2 last year to give you that 8th place cutoff. And you're right, Zephyr. They're doing it all. Element 6 getting a little bit closer, especially with their dominating performance on back-to-back match win days on the other group matchups. But for teams that we really didn't get to see today, Alliance, they've got roster changes. They have Unlucky now. We'll see them after the changes of Season 20. LCDF, though, Passion. A lot of these teams have to salvage points and start to vie for that 8th place cutoff, because if not, we're looking at potential relegation.
Oh, yeah, something coming up.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, if you talk about relegation, that's my baby when it comes down to the bottom 8 teams here, 23rd through 30th, you've got to be a bit mindful, especially as we look towards 40% worse. Redragon in mind. I remind you that they are completed for their second round robin. The rest of these teams still one match ahead here. If they don't shape themselves up going into our changes here, they could be potentially back down with those Challenger Circuit teams looking for a place in Pro League.
That's a good shout, Zephyr. Definitely lots of teams that we have to be keeping our eyes on, whether that is on the top or the bottom of our leaderboard. Now, we obviously had tons of fantastic performances here today, but when it comes to talking about players and specifically about picking an MVP, after what we saw today, it's gotta be Ranches. Okay, cybercats was a team that was improving every single match day so far. Obviously, Zephyr had spoken about them at the top of the show as his team to watch, and let me tell you, they came out swinging when we started everything on Storm Point here today with a 12-kill win. But even on their slower matches, they were still really managing to nail down that KP. And a huge reason that they were getting that KP, it was Ranches, okay? M&K showing they could do it too, because heading into match number 6, even with the team slowing down just the littlest bit when it came to World's Edge, he was still 3rd overall for his kills with 12 to him alone, closes out the day with 14. And just for reference, heading into match number 6 with him at 12, the team was at 26. He was almost 50% of the slaying power for cybercats. You can see just shy of 6k damage. I mean, I don't know if there are enough good things I can say about Ranches about what we saw out of cybercats. I mean, you have to be happy with not only that individual performance, but with that pick as well here, Zephyr.
Yeah, it is a phenomenal upgrade from the performance that we see, finishing off the day at the highest KDA of any single player in all of our match history. So definitely a star-studded result. And while, yes, it isn't quite the second that we grew accustomed to, it is something that stays competitive, that now puts them, especially in my sightlines, when we start those discussions regarding playoffs.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. And another thing that's going to be great, production's amazing, because I said maybe we could hopefully get the thoughts of some people on Forge. Well, we have VexX standing by, ready to talk to us, which I'm very excited for, because I'm sure everybody has some questions after what we saw. First of all, VexX, hello! It's been a long time. How are you? Thank you for joining us.
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me again. It's good to be back.
It's lovely to have you. Now, I have to ask you, we mentioned it post-match, talking about all of it. Game number 5, we heard the comms. Everybody's so hyped. All we needed was one big game. How are you guys feeling after your performance here today?
I mean, honestly, we're feeling great. We had probably the worst start possible to this whole Pro League. After 2 match days in, we were in 30th. You know, we hit rock bottom. It couldn't get worse. We started to like figure out some things to fix up our issues and like improve in general. And I kept saying after we had a contest on Storm Point as well, and I kept saying like I can smell the big game like it's coming. We're like one win, like one fight away. Then it happened in game 5, so we bursted out with passion basically.
I love that. We did keep an eye a lot on that contest that was happening over there at Cascades. But VexX, I want to hear it from you. You did kind of mention that there were some things that you were working on with the squad, obviously being a new team coming into this split. And you were 18th prior on this most recent match day for groups A and C. What were some of the things that you as the team were seeking to improve on? And because it obviously paid off.
Well, to say it like gently, the first 2 days we played like scared people, like very scared people. I'll put it nicely. We played scared. We gave teams way too much respect that we figured out like, you know, we're better than this. Why are we giving these people respect? Like, just go fight them. If they try to take space from us, we take it back. And we had Savage, who is like very much into fighting. This guy, like every time he sees someone, he's like, I want to fight them. It's like, okay, relax. We'll improve our fighting. We'll go over it, but we're not going to end everyone quite yet. Okay. So let's make sure there's a balance to it. So he went over our vaults and explained how he wants to fight as a, you know, as our entry fragger as well. And it completely turned around our fighting for the better.
Well, it has clearly been seen today, and I kind of want to extend that one a little bit further, especially because, you know, as we are kind of already at the half point in the season, I still am very curious about this. You guys pick up Slayers, right, as that third member for this roster as potentially a big solution. Can you give me a little bit of insight on how that has been, especially after his long-winded extent alongside E6?
Slayers is like, okay, this is the first time for me teaming with a controller player, so I'm obviously not bringing out the best out of him yet, which is yet to come. But he has probably the best mental out of anyone I've ever seen. Like, he is, no matter what, he can like look at his own mistakes. He can also, he's not worried about like talking about our mistakes. Always wants to improve. No matter what, like I'll be just laying on my couch and he just texts me. He's like, yo, I'm doing TDMs, I'm farming right now. It's like, hey, good man, good for you. No matter what, he just keeps going. So I just love playing with him.
Okay, now we got an opportunity to ask Kashera this earlier, and I want to get your thoughts on it as well. Obviously, everybody's talking about Season 20. So many changes are about to come into the game, and obviously we don't know 100% how it's all going to play out, but just from your limited knowledge thus far, I kind of want to get any predictions you might have on how it could potentially change the competitive meta.
It will change it for sure. Characters are now being able to be balanced between perks as well, which is huge for characters that are known as weak characters, and there will definitely be changes. I am just very worried because our scrims already have been looking bad, and I can't imagine what they're going to look like with everyone running around with 60 different characters just ainting each other. Like, I'm not excited for that. So I have no idea how I'm going to figure out if it actually is going to work, but it's going to be a fun experience, that's for sure. So I'm not making any predictions. I'm just going to read about it, wait for the patch notes, and then practice what comp will work for us.
Just general expanded legend viability.
Sure, you can call it that. I'm just
I like it.
I'm just ready to
Sure, I like it. All right. Well, Phoenix, congratulations on today. Strong performance. Thank you so much for jumping on and chatting. We'll say goodbye for now.
Thank you all for having me. You guys are doing great. Keep it up.
Thank you. Always love an opportunity to chat with our players. Now, we're almost done here, but before we say goodbye to everybody, Tiff, I want to get your thoughts on the day because it was a good one.
Overall, it was a really good one, but when I think back to it, I'm just really proud of AURORA to be able to maintain the consistency on groups A and C, and for the teams like Forge, Phoenix being able to identify where they needed to improve on and being able to make that happen. So now as we go forward and we start thinking about playoffs, a lot of our squads that were outside that top 8 mark, they've got some work to do. And even if that's just getting into the regional finals to get a chance for the match point to really throw a wrench into the equation. But for now, hey, EMEA was a good time.
I love it. I love it. And Zephyr, the EMEA reigning knowledge king, if you will. Give me your thoughts.
Ooh.
You guys play that up a little too much, but I appreciate nonetheless. EMEA is always a joy to be a part of here, and it's even more of a joy to see how much the region has changed coming in and out of this roster mania, and it's still left with lots of questions. I mean, coming out and seeing ESG, cybercats, and even GoNext make their returns in today's match day, and not the same kind of faces that we see between E6, LCDF, and 07, who they themselves even previously have their own successes this split. Nothing is set in stone unless it rhymes with aura.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys absolutely crushed it today. Thank you so much for your hard work. For now, we'll say goodbye, let you rest up before we get into another region. All right? Because it's not just EMEA that we have here today. We might be done, but we still have our NA Match Day 5 coming up right around the corner. 11 p.m. GMT, 6 p.m. ET, 3 p.m. PT, okay? You can't possibly mess this one up, and you don't want to miss it. We have so many recognizable names playing today in groups A and C. We've got OXG. We have TSM. We have Luminosity. We have Exit. It's going to be an epic battle between all of these squads, and after the performance that we saw last time, I can't wait to see what happens, especially when it comes to who we have this time around. EMEA crushed it. NA will do the exact same thing. So obviously, get yourselves a little bit of a break and reset yourselves and prepare for more action out of NA. And if we're talking about Apex Legends events, we might as well also mention something that I think is one of the coolest things we have going on right now. It is the Apex Legends Asia Festival. It's coming up right around the corner. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, well, we have a cheeky little trailer to show you. So let's check it out. Exciting. It is one of the largest offline events for Apex Legends in Asia. And if you go, you'll have the opportunity to witness teams like TSM, Alliance, various ALGS pros, and prominent creators from across China, Japan, and Korea participating. You don't want to miss it. It's at the end of February, the 24th and the 25th. If you can't make it though, just make sure you tune into the broadcast. Not only will there be Twitch drop items that you can earn, but it'll be a fantastic experience. It'll be on twitch.tv/esports_rage. Obviously, Wig and Greek, you know they're going to be there with an epic watch party on their channels as well. It's going to be incredible. You've got a little bit of time to plan for it right now. Might even be some incredible cosplayers there, you know, take some legendary selfies, if you will. Just saying, maybe consider it. All right, I'm jealous of everybody that gets to go, but as always, if you've somehow missed any of our match days so far, you want to get some more updates on what's going on with Challenger Circuit, you can always catch us on @PlayApex Esports, whether that is on X or that is over on YouTube for all of those updates. As for now, it's time for us to say goodbye, but like we mentioned before, when we return, lots of North American action coming right at you. So we'll see you back here in just a few hours.
That was a work of art.
Shooting fish in a bear.
This is the biggest game of cat and mouse.
Suited and booted, I'm ready for war. Put the pedal to the floor. Heavy metal in the background. You should know I don't back down. When it's go time, I waste no time. Tell them go and cut the cord. And they just keep telling me more. They keep on telling me more. I'm in the flesh. Something gets me is your death. All that I see is success. I don't believe in you demons. You screaming out leaks to the left. People, they need me, they need to believe in the best. Similar eagle and crest. This in the end. Shake a vibe with the flash. Let's see you best prepare. Hold on. You ain't built like me, man. Like you looking at a warrior. See, this is going at history. I'm trained to go and battle. You should have known better on the front lines. I'm a known rebel, yeah. They say the flow clever when it's crunch time. I just won't let up now. You look like a buffet and I need to put on some weight. Most of the opposition, I'm the competition. When it's wartime, that's the only mission. I'm a monster. Selling with fire, the king of the land. Top of the rise, the war ready. I was born ready. Hard times left my soul heavy, but I'm